digital world is shifting fast. As global competition accelerates, Europe stands at a crossroads. Dominated by American platforms, increasingly reliant on Asian supply chains. The question isn't just about competitiveness, it's a matter of European tech sovereignty. From navigating the challenges and opportunities of artificial intelligence to identifying and defending against the rising threat of cyber attacks, humanoid robotics to defense and space technology, the race is on to secure Europe's place in a new tech order.
UK has one of the richest AI communities anywhere on the planet. The deepest thinkers, the best universities.
We have the strength and we just need to have the will to create in Europe and to innovate and create value there.
We must switch gears. We must speed up AI adoption across the board.
Powered by Bloomberg's unrivaled reporting and data, we unite top technology leaders, policymakers, investors, and innovators to tackle today's defining tech challenges. Will Europe carve out its own digital destiny, or will it remain reliant on others? And what forces will shape the continent's digital future? Welcome to Bloomberg Tech London.
Please welcome to the stage Bloomberg's Tom Giles.
Good morning. Welcome to Bloomberg Tech right here in London. I'm thrilled to be with you here today in what is turning out to be a momentous year in European technology. My colleagues here in EMEA, many of whom you're going to meet on stage today, have been chronicling many of these dramatic shifts that are shaping this region's future. Starting with ASML and its role, its vital role in the AI chip supply chain, SAP and its race to incorporate AI into its entire suite of products. Sovereign wealth funds and VCs are stepping up and racing to identify the next generation of European regional champions. Earlier this year, Bloomberg partnered with Founders Forum to spotlight 25 European tech startups to watch. High on the list was 11 Labs right here in the UK, Lovable from Sweden, Helsing, which hails from Germany, and Mistral from France, which is emerging as this region's best hope to pose a real competition to OpenAI and DeepSeek around the world. The question on everybody's mind is Europe on a path toward tech sovereignty, as Caroline mentioned in the video heading up into this presentation? Will it reduce its reliance on the US and China? Or will this region continue to be dogged by the bugaboos of overregulation, fragmentation, and a dearth of spending? Just yesterday, a large swath of the digital world, including our event website, apologies if you were affected or you maybe missed out on your snap streaks. We got a taste of what happens when a single tech behemoth has an outage. I think what happened yesterday with AWS, on one hand, was the inevitable result of an increasingly concentrated tech ecosystem where a single company holds the keys, or where a small number of companies hold the keys. But I also think it could serve as a wake-up call to build a more resilient, independent tech infrastructure. Today, you're going to hear from leaders who are tackling those and many other issues, from breakthroughs in Fintech, defense tech, and space exploration, to how creators, chatbots, and robots are changing the way we work, the way we age, and the way we interact with each other. Before we dive in, indulge me to share some logistics with you. Behind me, you should see details for the Wi-Fi and a QR code for downloading our event app, which I encourage you to do, because that will be a key for you throughout the day to access our agenda, information on our distinguished speakers, and a way to network with one another. I also want to tell you about something we're calling the Innovators Circle. It's new to Bloomberg Tech London this year. This is a community of top tech leaders who are exploring opportunities and challenges shaping their businesses. Whether you're part of that group or simply here to take it all in, check in the app for session times and locations. This event would not have been possible without the support of our sponsors. We'd therefore like to acknowledge our presenting sponsors, PwC, Tata Communications, our supporting sponsors, Kyndryl, Verizon Business, and Vodafone Business. This event is also supported by the Kuwait Direct Investment Promotion Authority. We also want to hear from you, our audience. You're going to have plenty of opportunities to engage with our speakers by submitting questions during sessions. And we're also going to be taking some polls, and we're about to do that in just a moment. So I would encourage you to scan the QR code again if you haven't already, and we're going to kick things off with our first poll. All right, so here's the question. What is the most important ingredient that it will take for Europe to achieve true tech sovereignty? Significant public and private investment. We're talking about the priority here, okay? Smarter regulation, nurturing homegrown champions, or closer political and industrial alignment. So go ahead, and while you vote, just a couple other quick reminders. Keep interacting with us throughout the day. If you're enjoying the event, if you want to share your thoughts in social media or take the conversation to your favorite social media sites, follow along using hashtag Bloomberg Tech, and don't forget to tag us at Bloomberg Live. So hashtag Bloomberg Tech, @Bloomberg Live. All right, let's check out the poll results. All right, so it's looking like we're still tabulating. We're still tabulating. Smarter regulation right now, looks like it's a bit of a horse race between nurturing homegrown champions and smarter regulation. On that subject of champions, we're going to be hearing from a lot of those or would-be champions today. All right, without any further ado, I want to get this conference started. Please join me in welcoming Kanishka Narayan, Minister for AI and Online Safety for the United Kingdom, and Audrey Herblin-Stoop, VP of Global Public Affairs and Communication at Mistral AI, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Amy Thompson.
Hello, welcome. So to kick things off, we're hearing European sovereignty, European tech sovereignty a lot lately. When you think about it, UK tech sovereignty, when you think about it, what does that mean to you? Minister, would you like to start?
Yeah, Amy, and can I just firstly thank Bloomberg for having me on here as well. It was one of my first media appearances as well, and so I've been very grateful for this opportunity to talk about the UK's plans on AI. Sovereignty to me means two things. It means a minimal conception of sovereignty at the very least, where we can sit at the negotiating table and look at the British public and say that we did everything we could and needed to ensure that Britain had resilient access to critical parts of the supply chain for a fundamental transformative technology that is artificial intelligence. So critical access being maintained over time is a fundamental conception of it. But I think our ambitions are greater than that. It's not just to have the minimal access to those parts of the supply chain, but to have an ambitious conception that a lot of the economic value that we think AI will create and generate will be both created and generated in the UK and captured in the UK as well. And so the floor to the ambition on sovereignty is to make sure that we have strategic leverage at the negotiating table, but the skies is what we're shooting for in generating and capturing economic returns here in the UK.
Audrey, what do you think?
First of all, I think this concept has made the biggest comeback in the concept in the last 10 years. I'm not a huge fan of the sovereignty concept, but I think what we try to put behind this idea is first, independence. Second, control, how for such an important technology we offer customers in public sectors and government the control over the data that are used by the technology. And the last one is choice, because we know how much goods and services we import for the US. It's not a bad thing to choose US providers, is they bring the best offer, but we need to get an alternative. So I think for us, the idea behind this concept of sovereignty is more a question about how do we own the technology, how do sensitive industry own the technology, and owning the technology means having great models, but also owning the infrastructure.
So what I'm hearing is strategic leverage and control over the infrastructure, and potentially one of the obstacles to that is Europe and the UK's, relative size in the tech industry compared to maybe US and China on AI. So examining that structural gap, what would it take for Europe to compete more aggressively? Is it a question of capital? Is it a question of coordination? Is it a question of risk tolerance? Audrey, what do you think?
So I think we need to be optimistic. I mean, we would not have created this company in Europe if we were not optimistic. But indeed, we have a lot of talents in Europe. We have everything in our power to build great AI. But what we need today is to move with a bigger urgency to keep Europe, and when I say Europe, I'm sorry, I include the UK, but indeed, I talk about as a continent. But indeed, I think there's several points that are important to maintain our place in the race, and maintaining our place in the race is not a question of having a good AI from Europe. It's a question about software. It's a question about owning our defense system. So it's a very strategic thing to actually increase our positioning in the global AI race. I think the first point is accelerating and supporting, fostering the demand. We are lagging behind in terms of AI usage in enterprise, in governments, in public sector in general. We need to accelerate, because without this demand, without the revenue, you can't find investors. So you need definitely to foster this better AI adoption. I think the second part is about indeed the talent. We had so many great schools in the UK, in France, in Poland. So we have some of the best researchers in AI in the world, but how many of them are working in the Silicon Valley? How can we make sure that they come back? How do we create a way to incentivize them to come back and make sure that they will benefit to the creation of a good and strong frontier AI in Europe? And indeed, we talk about regulation and how regulation and innovation can sometimes oppose themselves. We do not believe that it's a strong opposition. We believe that some good and smart regulation can actually help a good competition and help to support European companies. But that being said, we need to ensure that it's easy to navigate. We need to simplify. I've been with Mistral for 2 years, which is almost the length of the company. And this is so painful, honestly, for a startup to try to navigate all the different regulation at the EU level, at the national level, and how some of them are overlapping each other, how GDPR is not just one GDPR, it's actually 27 interpretation of it. So we're not saying that we should get rid of regulation, but it's more a question of how do we leverage regulation to create something that would create a benefit for European companies, and will not create useless burden for them.
Kanishka, how do you see government's role then in creating this regulatory clarity, but also creating an attractive environment for talent to stay local, for companies to feel confident in adopting AI.
Yeah, and if I can link it to the broader question as well, which is the question of what you do when your scale is small but your ambition is very large. And to me, it really comes down to two things, risk and what the story is. The risk element, because I don't think there is any correlation fundamentally between the size of a country and the scale of its ambitions and what it can achieve. It is true when you look across the world that Taiwan has a particular sense of strategic leverage in the AI supply chain. The Dutch have a fantastic home with ASML. The Israelis across software have been able to achieve a huge amount, notwithstanding scale in some cases, because of scale, the ability to move fast and create a particular sense of focus. And so, to me, the two big things are, one, risk across the UK, and I'd conjecture perhaps also across Europe. What we need is a sense that it's time to be risk on, and that is true in the private sector, it is true in civil society, it is true in government. And so in government's role, very particularly, where we're going is to say that to be risk on in a responsible way, but in a way that is deeply ambitious, you need to have a very different approach to how you're thinking about state capacity. This morning, we are announcing a AI sandbox, a AI growth lab, which will mean that companies now have regulatory clarity in the deployment of AI at scale right across this country. That is not a deregulatory measure, it is a measure of state capacity, because alongside it, we are funding the MHRA, the primary medicines and healthcare regulator in this country, with additional capacity to be able to keep up with that as well. And so right across government, we are trying to take an approach that says we recognize the fundamental crisis in this country over the last decade and a half has been a crisis of productivity, and it's time to tackle that head on by being risk on. And I would encourage everyone across civil society and the private sector to have a similar approach. I think we can achieve a lot in this country if we do that. The second part of it is one of the things I'm a relatively newcomer to politics. I had a background in tech and investing. And when I joined politics, people said to me, there are two types of politicians. One set of politicians talk, and people say, oh, very, very smart, wonky person, great, interesting. And there's another kind of politician who speaks, and everyone says, I came out and I wanted to march, because there was a very clear sense of direction and a sense of what the story was. And so we don't just need to go away from these rooms and say it's time to be risk on, but we need to try and do that in a particular coherent and hopefully collective direction. And to do that, I think we need a very clear story of what a British trajectory on AI specifically looks like, or indeed an European trajectory in some places might look like. For Britain, I think we can be the world's adoption nation. We have amazing strengths historically in driving the adoption of technologies in different parts of the country. We've already seen in the last 3 years AI-related employment in Yorkshire and Wales, in the Northwest, in the Midlands, doubling. It's time for us to try and do that a lot more. I think the public sector and government have a big role to play there. We also have a very particular strength in the quality of our research and talent, both in the academic and industry context as well. And so another thing that we're focused on is what we can try and do to turbocharge that, both domestically in our schools and university systems, but fundamentally in terms of Britain standing up tall and saying this is the moment for the world's best international talent on AI to come here and find a warm welcome.
So the regulatory sandbox, I want to bring back to that one because that's new this morning. What are you hoping to achieve with this? What's the scale of this? How does this actually flow through into policy and regulation in the UK ultimately?
What we're really fundamentally hoping to achieve is to work with businesses and regulators together to say where there are barriers, or whether that's on account of perception or in some places reality, regulatory barriers to productive deployment of AI. We want to work together with those organizations to try and find a collective solution that is way quicker. At the moment, lots of businesses and lots of different regulated industries try to deploy AI. The organizations quite understandably worry about the liability and risk management regimes in those areas. There's a lot of lack of clarity given a nascent technology and in regulatory contexts that are not as nascent. And so what we're really trying to do with the sandbox, as some of the historic examples of sandboxes in this country have shown, is that by creating an environment where companies can work very closely together, display what the capabilities of new technology are, what some of the upsides and downsides are, we can end up with a regulatory picture that is a lot more agile and adept to the reality of modern technology.
Okay. Now, on the topic of sovereignty, I wanted to bring it back to one of the big stories that we've been covering that very much touches on the theme at Bloomberg this week. The Dutch government seized control of Nexperia, a Dutch semiconductor company that's owned by a Chinese firm, WingTech. It's also a company that the UK has banned from owning chip production assets, if anybody remembers the Newport wafer fab issue from a few years ago. Maybe just business journalists do. But at what point for critical tech, in your opinion, is it okay for the government to come in and block a deal or take ownership or control? Is it just a question of, that deal is okay when one of our allies does it? Or are you trying to find a way to balance maybe protectionism with access to capital?
I think that's a question for me.
Yes.
Well, look, I won't comment on the what is a live operational situation with Nexperia. So let me keep it broad. One of the things that I think we've ended up with is a rigorous national security and investment regime in this country. And in terms of your very specific question of how it balances source of capital relative to the nature of the technology, protectionism versus access to capital, the national security and investment regime has a relatively clear sort of rubric for how we end up assessing it. And of course, source of capital is one input into that. Some sources and countries, but also types of actors in particular from those countries have a different risk assessment to allies and companies that have been investing in the UK and have a healthy long-term history of doing so without a fundamental kind of IP challenge in terms of unexpected transfers. And then there are other places where we find that there are technologies that are still nascent but are so compelling for their long-term trajectory, and in particular for dual-use application in the UK, that we want to have a slightly greater threshold of where we're landing in terms of the relative balance between securing strategic leverage in the long term and allowing access to capital, being an international pool in particular. And so I think that regime broadly works well. I think there are things we can do to try and support its greater efficiency in terms of ways of working. But broadly, I think in terms of the rubric and the framework we have, it's both a clear one. I think it's very intelligible to investors across the world and to companies in the country. And certainly if that's not the case, I'd be very open to feedback on it.
Okay. You mentioned sort of strategically very important industries. I can see AI and the infrastructure around it becoming a critical industry, if it's not already. Are you thinking through that rubric as far as AI? What are you thinking about as far as industries that we want to protect that need to stay British in the AI industry?
I think in broad brush terms, and certainly key parts of the AI infrastructure context, developing compute in this country, for example, the mindset that we're in at the moment is less one of restriction and more one of proactive support. And so if you think about where we landed on the UK-US tech prosperity deal, the first ever tech prosperity deal and one of the largest set of infrastructure investment announcements, I think certainly in my kind of adult life in the UK. We have a British company in the midst of it, Nscale, now developing, headquartered in the UK, developing great capability and capacity in the UK, building compute facilities in an AI growth zone in the northeast, allowing a bunch of people in Newcastle and around there to both benefit from research advantages, healthcare advantages, and jobs fundamentally in that regional economy. And so it's certainly part of our mind and an idea to be proactive in supporting British capability in this context as well, but to be very clear-eyed about the fact that we only do that, in that case, for example, if we work together with those who we are international allies with and who bring remarkable capabilities as well, in this case, NVIDIA and OpenAI in particular as well.
Okay. Now, Audrey, where this may apply to Mistral is thinking about who your investors might be and your sources of capital and who gets an equity stake. How do you think about that?
I mean, this is a very competitive race in an industry that requires a lot of capital. We were very, very lucky to be able to raise 1.7 billion with, among other, ASML really recently. But I think what matters the most for us is to build an independent company. The reason why the company was created was indeed to build an independent European company that would provide an alternative to what we are observing as a centralization of the technology in the end of a very few group of stakeholders, initially in the US and now a bit in China. So I think for us, the main question is how do we make sure that we keep the control of the company? Today, our founders and the employees have the majority of the capital, and so we have organized ourselves to maintain the control. And I think that's the most important part. We are indeed in Europe struggling with a level of investments which is very, very different from the one we can observe in the US. I mean, the lack of venture capital is a true issue in Europe, but you can find an alternative. So I think I'm coming back to the point I made on AI adoption, because what matters when you are trying to raise funds is to demonstrate your ability to create value and to create revenues. That's the only thing that matters for investors. So we need absolutely to increase and foster the demand, to increase adoption of the technology, and that's how we will indeed continue to raise funds and keep up in the race.
Okay. And we've been touching on this a bit, but looking at sort of the regulatory environment overall in Europe, the AI Act, Europe's AI Act, there has been an argument that it risks slowing innovation, that there's some overreach. Is regulation a European export? Is it a competitive advantage in any way? Is it an Achilles heel? What do you think, Audrey?
So on the AI Act, we were actually the first company signing the code of practice for implementation. I think, I mean, it was a very high number of hours spent in negotiating it, so it was worth it signing it after all of this work. I think ultimately what we want as a company is to create trust with our customers. And that's what matters. When I talk about AI adoption, there would be no adoption if we can't create this trust with the company we're working with public sector, with end consumer. So I understand that the idea and all European regulation have been built on this idea to protect the consumer. That's really how European regulation is made. So there's part of the AI Act that indeed satisfies this need, and it's an important one. But obviously, I mean, I would not go through the entire process, but as a lot of people know, this legislation was built before generative AI, and then ChatGPT happened, and they forced actually something about generative AI in the middle of the discussion because they didn't want to go through another legislative process, meaning that, honestly, it's not the best written legislation we have seen, and so it's difficult to actually make it really workable. For our part, which is not the entire part of the Act, I mean, it's a lot about transparency, documentation. It's not ideal, but it's clearly manageable. And if it can create trust with our clients who needs this transparency, this documentation, that's a good thing. Where there's more ambiguity is on our customer front, because some of them, they do not know where they will fail, what they will have to comply with, and that is the main issue for us. When you are in a commercial discussion and that the person tells you, oh, I'm not sure I can actually implement an AI model because I do not know what will be the requirement I will have to comply with if I'm going this way, we have a problem. When regulation and the uncertainty of the regulation is blocking the adoption of the innovation, that's where there's an issue. But I know the Commission is well aware of that. There's a digital omnibus coming. So there will be opportunity to fine-tune it, but hopefully to find a way to still protect the consumer. And I think that's all our goal. We want to build this trust, but also to find a more predictable and something easier to navigate for the future.
Minister, have you taken any lessons from the EU AI Act, and how is it going to inform the way the UK regulates the industry?
Well, we look at lessons globally, and of course, by virtue of being close partners to Europe, we look at the European experience as well. I think there are a couple of things on regulation. One, I don't think I sort of buy the argument of either being pro-regulation or anti-regulation. I think regulation in some places has been very compelling for technological innovation. I think about, for example, the open banking regulations in this country, which allowed a series of startups and venture firms. I used to be a fintech investor. I saw a ton of open banking startups create interesting ideas and companies on the back of it as well. And that was a regulatory move that displayed a very pro-innovation approach in government. And so I think that's a starting philosophical point. The second practical point is that when it comes to AI, our approach has been that AI application and regulation at the point of use, or thinking about the impact at the point of use, has been the most material vector to think about. And that's partly why when we've been thinking about the AI sandbox, we've been very clear that we need to make sure that a series of vertical-specific regulators are able to come together and think about the ways in which we can support consumers and businesses, but drive adoption in particular verticals. And so that's a very critical area of focus at the moment, and we're prioritizing areas where we think we can generate the greatest economic value through appropriate regulation and good state capacity.
And so many companies in the UK, Mistral in France, are operating on a global standard. How can regulators help them navigate different regulatory regimes? You know, how do you make sure you're compliant with the US, the UK, Europe? What are those conversations like?
Well, I think, again, it's sort of, for me, it comes down to conceiving of the role of regulation and regulators and government in a different way. We are trying to be way more hands-on, set up concierge services in government and across the regulatory context, because the main thing you can do in that sort of situation is to make sure that we're providing maximal clarity at the earliest possible point and working hand in hand with our firms as well. And I'm delighted, by the way, that Mistral, not only that Arthur come from DeepMind, but also we've been working very closely across the board, and I know colleagues of mine were before I joined as well. And so I'm very much looking forward to living that claim of close relationship management, to be able to make sure that Mistral and others feel that we have a very clear sense of regulatory picture here to deploy and adopt a lot more.
Okay, I've run out of time way too quickly on this one, so lightning round. Imagine we're sitting here in 2028. What does success look like for European, and geographical European, technological sovereignty? Is it a global champion? Is it a strong ecosystem? Is it control over our own standards and infrastructure? Audrey, what do you think?
I mean, our ambition has always been to be the European big tech. So by then, success will be indeed to be a strong company with a lot of employees, a big office in London, a huge office in Paris. But I think it's going to be, for us, if we talk about owning the technology, it means definitely having the choice on the entire value chain. So I think we will have succeed when we will have an offer that would be a good offer, not compromising on the quality and the security at every level of the value chain, from the chips to the model and deployment.
Okay. Kanishka.
4 quick things. One, we'll sit here and look back and say Britain's productivity picture, the real wages in this country were able to increase as a result of us driving growth through the use of AI. 2, we will have a sense that not only did we drive growth and productivity in real wages for people across this country, but that we are able to continue to do so because we have resilient access to critical parts of the supply chain. And 3, we're genuinely able to spread both the story and the reality of AI, which people feel bought into. It becomes a collective national mission that you feel right across the beating heart of South Wales, in Yorkshire, across the north of England and Scotland and Northern Ireland, and right across the centre of the capital as well. And as a bonus, Mistral has a huge office in London and a big office in Paris.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Rick Haythornthwaite, Chair, NatWest, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Aisha Ghani.
Good morning, Rick.
Good morning.
So, when you hear the phrase Fintech's next frontier, what's the first word or image that comes to your mind?
Can I have a few words?
Go for it.
No, I think it's really that an increasingly bespoke, responsive, anticipatory service to the customer.
Okay, great. We've just had a Mistral on stage, and of course, AI has been reshaping finance, whether that's in customer service and fraud detection. So I'm curious to hear your perspective. What are the biggest opportunities in this space in the coming years, but also the biggest risks?
Well, I think the biggest opportunity is undoubtedly banking is well positioned to drive agentic AI. I mean, putting the customer first, recognizing the journey the customer is going to take. There are going to be some that will take to it immediately. Not everyone will want to look at an autonomous agent. So banking is a great place to actually test and roll this out. Now, the UK has proven to be, I think, an extraordinary place in terms of putting AI and agentic AI as a solution to some of our productivity issues. So here we are as a nation that's seen as technologically progressive. And therefore, I think the opportunities are there, but you're right, there are risks. We need to be responsible in the way we do it. We need to make sure that we get the regulation right, get the balance of regulation. Regulation can help, and we heard about the AI sandbox from the previous speaker, but it can also protect, but if it goes too far, it can hinder.
Right. Now, NatWest, of course, has become the first UK bank to partner with OpenAI. So I'm curious, what has that looked like so far? And also, how has it changed the experience for your colleagues?
Well, I think partnering with someone like OpenAI, getting early access to their models and getting their experts, talking with our experts and being able to feed into their thinking as well, has undoubtedly accelerated our AI journey. So whether it's on our chatbots or whether it is the solutions for our customers or solving some of our most complex customer issues that are out there, it's all helped. But I think it's also helped attract the best people into the company, not just partners, but people into the company. I mean, we've got our first AI research officer, Dr. Maya Pantic, comes in with an expertise in deepfakes, and so that all helps, and it also attracts other partners. We've got AWS and Accenture helping us on data. Internally, all the team at working with Microsoft and Copilot and so everything is in there, but it's all part of a mix that is very much built in our own team plus partnership.
Maybe we can touch on AWS a little bit later, but just on that point, and in terms of the hiring spree, I remember reporting a few years back on Evident AI's banking index, and I recall how JP Morgan was hoovering up the best AI talent, and it was very much an AI arms race in terms of which banks could get the best talent. And of course, NatWest has climbed up the ranks. And so you've mentioned hiring. What other kind of investments has there been in this space?
Well, I think people are attracted to places where we are bold in what we're trying to do. I mean, we don't see AI as a peripheral activity. It's the heart of our strategy. We recognize that unless we get ahead of the game, then we can't possibly attract the customers of the future. So, when we go out and we look for our 12,000 engineers and counting, we're getting them. We already have 5,000 of those working on AI, enhanced by AI, and so, and then when we attract people like Maya, that turns heads. When we partner with people like OpenAI, that turns heads. So we're finding we're attracting all the people we want to attract.
Great. And does this mean when you compete with digital-first players, does it mean that you can compete more directly, or how has that kind of changed?
I don't think we compete directly. I mean, people recognize that there are advantages and there are challenges on both sides of that fence. To be a digital first, okay, you start with a clean slate digitally and technologically, but high growth has its problems. We start with an extraordinary database, with a reservoir of trust, with 20 million customers, with already 80% of our retail customers banking digitally, 95% of our products are available digitally. We have a base where people can work from. And the toughest thing, if you're a fintech, is finding a channel, finding a customer to really go out and test out your theories. We are the perfect test base, and therefore, people come to us so that they can do that. We can provide the funding as well.
And just on that point, I was reading a bit about your AI assistant, which I believe is called Cora Plus, and I saw it had seen a 150% boost in customer satisfaction. So I'm curious, what had changed?
Well, I mean, that's just really bringing increasing the level of AI to what was initially was quite a basic technology. But more to the point, we're getting far higher retention rates through the calls because we're producing a medium that our customers are happy with banking with, and it's solving their problems. In the end, unless this is anticipating and it is solving the customer problems, then it's not worth it as technology.
Right, I hear you. So on the flip side, I know in the previous panel they also discussed this, and you've just mentioned this too, but finance is one of the most regulated industries. So then how do you balance this need for fast innovation, but with also remaining compliant and auditable and ethical?
Well, I think everyone, it doesn't matter whether you're regulated or not, has basically got to make sure that there's human in the loop, that you respect and promote human agency, that the tech is reliable, that there's no bias, that and so on and so forth, that you can explain it. It doesn't matter whether you're regulated or not. Actually, we have an advantage because we are used to regulation. All our models that are AI infused have been regulated for years. We know how to manage in a regulated environment. And so I think it's the regulatory conversation is a sensible one right now, but it's a one that we feel very comfortable with.
Let's move on to the next section, because we've got lots to get through. There was a lot of discussion around European sovereignty, so let's hone in on the UK and the sort of global fintech momentum that we're seeing. And of course, this country's always been a powerhouse when it comes to finance. But I'm really curious from your perspective, how do you see the UK in terms of its global standing at the moment?
Well, I think we're very strong. We have a great fintech reputation. Wherever I go around the world, people speak of it. It's not just in London, it's in all the nations and the regions. It's Edinburgh, it's Manchester, it's Leeds, it's Cardiff. But that's been born of actually really quite enlightened regulation in the past, whether it's the FCA sandbox or whether it's open banking. It's been born of the talent we have in the country, or we have the universities churning out great people. When you look at universities, more people in entrepreneurial clubs than playing sport. It wasn't like that in my day. And then it also it helps that banks like us and other institutions are there to support it. I think also, as I mentioned earlier, with the UK having gained a reputation for being technologically progressive, it's great to see these big tech partnerships, big tech piling money into the country, forging these partnerships with the government and the regions. And so all of that helps, but we can't take this for granted. International competition is growing very rapidly, and unless we really think intentionally and strategically about how to invest in these companies, how to get these partnerships going, to get more of our pension fund money into the venture capital world, so they don't have to go to the US, they don't have to go overseas to find the startup and the scale-up capital. Until we sort that out, we're in danger of losing the lead.
There's 2 points I want to pick on there. So it was just a few weeks ago that NVIDIA's CEO was in the UK, and he said that he was investing in quite a few firms, including Revolut. And yet, just on that point, we've seen several UK fintechs, they're able to scale here, but then when it comes to the next step, when they look to list or when they look to growth capital, they're eyeing the US. So if you could just elaborate a few more points on how can the UK retain its like title of being this fintech hub?
Well, I think it doesn't have to just be about finance, because I think to ensure that the regulators and the government and the regional hubs and the fintech companies themselves and banks like us focus on this, and we do what we can do, which is lend, invest, partner, advise, all of these things. That all helps. But it would be great to see more of our pension fund money in the UK go to UK companies and to the venture capital. The level going to the UK capital is infinitesimally small in the UK, and we've got to find some way of increasing that. You can't do it by mandate, but I think where there's a focus on this, whether through the Mansion House Accord or through what the government is talking about in terms of their growth strategy, this is very important that we make some change here.
Yeah, you just reminded me earlier this year when Wise announced it is deciding to shift its primary listing from London to New York. That definitely rocked the markets here. But I guess another point is around regulation, and some of the people I speak to say some things are pretty slow. One of the points that is raised is around the Genius Act and how that's kind of means that there's a lot faster innovation around stablecoins in the US, and like the UK is like far behind when it comes to that. So yeah, I just thought it would be good to hear your thoughts around that too.
Well, I think we'd move into a whole new realm of stable coins and tokenized deposits, etc. There's no doubt that the MiCA Act in Europe put the topic on the table. The Genius Act, obviously with the backing of the US administration, has taken off very rapidly and is hitting the world with scale of the dollar-denominated stablecoin. We in the UK are less focused on stablecoin, more on tokenized deposits. Like the US, we don't believe in a central bank digital coin. Europe, central bank digital coin, stable coin, tokenized deposits. Now, the regulation is more focused right now, rightly, on infrastructure and interoperability. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a whole bunch of walled gardens of liquidity, little localized pieces of infrastructure, and I think that's the right place to be. Now, I can't do anything at a government level. At a board level, we're saying the only way to deal with the massive uncertainty of this is put your chips on a lot of different squares here and be excellent in something, because at some point you're going to get a killer use case appear, and the abstraction layer will unify all of this, and unless you're everywhere and excellent at something, you will not have a seat at the table. So from a board standpoint, in these early days of uncertainty, it is optionality and hedging bets. Okay.
I think just because in the interest of time, I would have loved to have heard more around that, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So fintechs are moving really fast. So do you see these upstarts as partners, competitors, a bit of both?
Remember, I was 15 years at MasterCard, from the early days of mobile through to the maturing. And that went competitor, maybe not, partner. And that, I think we're going to see the same transition here.
And we were discussing AWS before, and they're obviously a huge partner for a lot of these firms. And just going back to the question around sovereignty, like, how do you deal with these issues that we're seeing it more and more when you see these sort of outages?
Well, these are outstanding companies that have brought in enormous technology and capability to companies like ourselves. But we recognize that there's potential fallibility in these. Therefore, one diversifies. We have many partners across those areas, and we make sure our own systems are robust, resilient, and rapidly recoverable. And that shows in our stats in recent years.
Now, if you had to bet on one game-changing innovation that will change the landscape in the next few years, what would it be?
I think that actually tokenization has been very important. It democratizes finance. It allows the agentics to have far more choices. And when quantum finally makes it into the scene, then there's far more asset to play with.
Rick, thank you so much for your insights on FinTech's next frontier.
Thank you very much.
Please welcome to the stage Michael Intrator, CEO of CoreWeave, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Tom Giles.
Mike, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure.
In case you haven't heard it about 10 times already, one of the big themes that we're talking about today is tech sovereignty. And I want to start by asking you, this idea of the region or individual nation states needing to do more to gain some degree of independence and sovereignty around the infrastructure needed, especially in advanced artificial intelligence. How does CoreWeave fit into that? And specifically, what's the role that, say, if Europe advances down this path, which it looks like they are, what's the role for CoreWeave, a company based in New Jersey?
The way that we've built CoreWeave is we've really been client-led. We built out some tooling and then really were very, very responsive to the client demands. And what we are seeing from our clients is an increased prioritization of distributing the infrastructure so that they can do two things, right? One is they can manage the risk of the regulations that would require increased control and sovereignty. And they also want to be able to provide infrastructure for inference in particular that is extremely latency responsive. And so it kind of lays hand in glove with the way that we're kind of going about continuing our international expansion to ensure that our infrastructure has been built out in a way that will achieve both of those goals simultaneously. And so you see us doing that, kind of broadly.
What do you see in terms of the demand from European customers in particular? And do you see a degree of urgency around sort of bespoke and very region-specific solutions in terms of the data center?
Yeah, so, I think that the way that the demand comes through the market right now is it's sort of bifurcated in a lot of ways, right? Like you've got one driver of demand that's coming from the most enormous companies in the world, the largest labs in the world, your OpenAIs, your Mistrals, all of them together, and they are very kind of tech forward, kind of thinking about how they're going to address this. And then in addition to that, you've got a host of startups, you've got a host of application layers that are looking to be able to orchestrate their compute that way. I mean, and we just completed the acquisition of Monolith, which was a UK-based company. It's a good example of a company that has, a significant distribution of clients kind of outside of that first tier of really, really large consumers that touch a lot of other players. Another acquisition that we did earlier this year was Weights and Biases, another great example. They have a massive breadth of clients, really, that globally, that really are providing us that roadmap. So we're kind of tackling the problem from two sides, right? One is this is the really scaled players, and those are kind of relatively small in number, always have been. And then there's this groundswell of smaller consumers that you need to be able to address, and you need to be able to help them as they're tackling these problems that are going to come up where they're not going to have the ability to kind of shift workloads around within their infrastructure.
Sure. Around the time of your IPO, there was some chatter on Wall Street about a lack of diversification of your customer base, right? Yeah. Microsoft accounting for a big chunk of it. Obviously, since then, you've announced some pretty breakthrough additional customers, OpenAI, Meta. Talk about And your stock has more than tripled last I checked, so I get the sense that the market gives it a stamp of approval. I'd like to just get a sense of the degree of urgency for greater diversification, to the extent that you have that. Where does it come from and how soon?
Yeah, so look, regardless of what the street said about diversification, diversification's always been a priority for us. We understand the value in having a broad array of clients, both from the perspective of it stabilizes your business, but also the information that you're getting by serving lots of different clients help you tailor what you're building, where you're building, how you're building, so that you're better able to serve consumers of this type of product. And so I was in an investor meeting recently, and there was a large Microsoft deal that went through with another one of the neoclouds, and I was getting, they were yelling at me. And I was like, look, you can either be upset with me for not enough diversification or not getting the next Microsoft deal, but you can't be upset with me for both, right? Because this is what diversification looks like, right? We're taking our infrastructure and we are making a concerted effort to bring on a broader array of clients. And the 14, the deal with Meta, which is at minimum $14 billion, is a great example of that. The continued participation with 2 of the 3 hyperscalers. We have ongoing business with Microsoft. That contract continues to expand. You're actually watching the process of diversification. Now, having said this, and I have said this many times, it is important for people to understand within the concept of diversification is that this product lends itself to large consumers. And so we can achieve diversification, and we have been focused on it, and really I'm very, very proud of the organization's progress around diversification, but it's not going to be 20,000 customers building foundation models. That's just not how this works. Right. And so, it's important for us to be involved with as many of the foundation models as possible. The announcement with Poolside is another great example of how you're seeing such a concerted focus on our part to really make sure that we're as diversified and broad as possible.
Do you anticipate adding other foundation models to the customer mix?
Yeah, I think that you're going to see new players come into the market with new approaches and periodic. I think it is very early innings to call it over, right? And so, yeah, I think you're absolutely going to see.
Any that you want to announce here on stage today, Mike?
I think we're doing great.
I do want to take a moment to talk about Core Scientific. This is the acquisition that your board had agreed to with their board, but there's been some roadblocks. Most recently, ISS advising against it. One of their big shareholders saying the price is too low. Talk us through where you stand on. I think the vote is coming up next week. You have already ruled out any discussion around the price. Is that still your stance?
Yeah. Look, okay. When we've had a long and successful relationship with Core Scientific. We have, starting in 2018, 2019, and that relationship has grown and evolved as CoreWeave has grown and evolved. And so it's been, very, very successful for both parties. I sat down with the management and the board of their company and my company, and we came to a deal that we thought was a fair representation of value. The ratio was correct. It's an all-stock deal, so you really got to look at it as a ratio basis. We took it to the market, and now the market has a different opinion, and that's fine. We're very comfortable that the way that we have priced it is appropriate for us. If there's someone else that would like to step in, they can step in. But we're excited. We think it makes sense. We continue to think it makes sense. It will go to a vote, but you won't see us bump our price or increase our price. We put a lot of thought into how we got to the structure and the deal that we got to.
Given where the spreads are, is there any universe in which you just walk before the vote happens?
So, you know, given where the spreads are, I think you just kind of let this play out.
Okay.
And, you know, if in the next week and a half or whatever it is, the collective shareholder base reconsiders and chooses to view it through the lens that I'm looking at, then the deal will close.
Yep.
And if they don't, it won't. But like I said, I continue to believe that it is would be a positive transaction for both sets of shareholders.
Yep. So capacity is king in the work that you do, and if my math serves, you're at about 470 megawatts of active data center capacity right now. You had talked about getting that to 900 by the end of the year. Can you get there if Core Scientific doesn't go through?
Oh, yeah. One of the things that's really important to understand here is, like, we control through contract the overwhelming majority of Core Scientific's assets already, right? Like we have been one of, you know, and once again, I'm very proud of the company for doing this. We have been one of the true innovators around many parts of this sector. And so we were the first ones to go into the crypto space and say, hey, they've got this power that can be repurposed. We went through the portfolios of various of the crypto miners, and we chose Core Scientific based on our relationship with them, and we contracted massive amounts of their infrastructure. And regardless of whether this transaction closes or not, that has no bearing on our roadmap. And you know, they were a very, very large part of our portfolio in the early days, and have, you know, we have systematically shrunk their footprint within our portfolio of data centers to below 25% already.
Okay.
And so, you know, you see us with, you know, we have a massive build out with Applied Digital. We have a massive build out with Galaxy Digital within the crypto space, those two. And then you have, you know, Switch and, you know, Equinox and all of the other data centers. So we're really well positioned with our infrastructure to really be able to execute on our roadmap.
So the 900 is in place. Where do you see that in 5 years?
So we announced just recently that we have 2.8 gigawatts worth of power within our portfolio that is excuse me, which covers our roadmap for building based on our contractual obligations. You know, I think that you're going to continue to see the scale of this company grow, you know, at an astronomical pace. The clients that we are serving are relentlessly pursuing larger, more diversified, new clusters of compute as they continue to build their business, and CoreWeave is a trusted, well-established resource that really is driving massive scale infrastructure throughout the system.
On that topic, I mean, there's absolutely demand, ongoing, robust demand for data center capacity. That's established. What struck many of us is the way that some of these deals are being structured in sort of non-traditional ways, where people are paying with, you know, taking stakes in other companies. People are paying with computing power chips. There's a circularity. There's a circular nature to the way some of these deals are being structured that has caused concern about inflation of valuations of companies, and concerns that there's ultimately, while there's great demand for the capacity, there's questions about the demand for the end product. And does it justify these outlays, these rather lavish outlays of spending? Can you talk about your sense of, you know, whether there will be enough demand for the end use services?
So I'm gonna tackle that question a couple of different ways. First of all, you know, when you're involved in a massive scale build out of infrastructure, one which overwhelms the supply side of the equation so significantly, it is not unusual to see different parties working together to be able to drive and accelerate the build-out. That is, we've seen that in other markets that have tried to deal with the shock load that comes from, we needed no parallel computing, now we need all the parallel computing. That's a very challenging environment to work in, and there's a lot of companies working together. The second thing I wanted to tackle is the concept of the massive spend that's going on. And I just think it's important that people deconstruct what the spend actually is, because I think it's getting kind of lumped into one category and then it's being attacked on that basis. And so when you're thinking about it, I would encourage you to think about it in really three distinct parts, right? The first part is the physical data center, right? That is a long-lived asset, right? That could last for 20, 30 years, the building, the fit out, the cooling, all of those components of it. And so that's a significant component of the spend that's occurring.
Sure. The chips?
I'm getting there.
Okay, all right.
I got you. The chips is the second piece of it, and you've seen CoreWeave innovating around the debt structures that allow us to go ahead and buy, build, deliver, and run the supercomputers that live within these data centers. And the obsolescence curve, you can argue about whether it's 6 years or 7 years or 9 years or 5 years, it doesn't really matter. But the way that we've tackled that problem is we have approached it like every other infrastructure build that's ever really occurred, which is using the debt markets and tailoring the debt products so that you're able to pay back for that portion of the infrastructure, which is the shortest lived portion of the infrastructure within the four walls of the contract and within the obsolescence curve of that infrastructure. And so we go out and we do a deal with Microsoft that's 5 years long. We pay for the infrastructure, we pay for the interest costs, we pay for the OpEx and the CapEx and everything else, and are left with a significant profit on top of that before the contract with Microsoft ends. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Like that's a reasonable approach, and I think Wall Street is becoming increasingly comfortable with that approach to using debt to structure compute. The third, and that's a part of the market that we are extremely active in. So the first two are really places where. The third part is it's important to understand that you are building companies that will define technology for the next 30, 50 years. And it is reasonable to approach that from the perspective of you're going to invest money right now to build intellectual property, to build products, to build mind share, to do all those things. And it will take more than 5, 7, 10, or maybe even 20 years to pay that back. Whatever, it doesn't matter. And that's a completely reasonable approach to investing in it. And think of like Google, right? Google, built and developed search and then used search to drive its company's profitability for many, many years. And I think that we're seeing a very similar type of build out of corporate value that, parts of it are going to pay back quickly, parts of it are going to take time. And you're going to see that occur through some of these incredible companies that are going to, define technology and define our world. And I think that's a reasonable investment to make.
Mike, in the last few seconds, I want to come back to acquisitions. Core Scientific likely doesn't happen. What are the other holes in the portfolio, and do you expect more consolidation in the neo cloud space?
So we have been very active and acquisitive this year. Right? We bought Weights and Biases. We bought Monolith just recently. We bought OpenPipe. You see CoreWeave from a strategic perspective moving up the stack, decommoditizing compute, providing additional value and services to our clients so that we're stickier so that we can, embed ourselves more effectively with clients and serve them a better product to be able to accomplish with that. And you're going to continue to see that. And you're going to see us doing that in the US. You see us doing it in Europe. We just, Monolith is a UK-based company, or was a UK-based company. Now they're part of us. And so you're going to continue to see us explore different ways of building the software stack and diversifying the products that we deliver to them, much like the diversification that you're seeing within our client base. And we're excited about that. We think that's a very appropriate way to continue to go. As far as the physical infrastructure, Core Scientific was a data center play for us. We've got data centers that we are building in New Jersey from greenfields up. That capacity exists within CoreWeave already. And Core Scientific was an accelerant, but like I said, the right price, it's a good deal.
Thanks a lot for being with us today, Mike.
Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Aidan Gomez, CEO, Cohere, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Lynn Dewan.
Aidan, thank you so much for joining us today. What an exciting time to be running an AI model developer in Canada, also in Silicon Valley, sort of in the UK. Where are you based, Aidan? You're sort of a man of many countries.
Yeah, I mostly based on a plane, but Cohere has really changed its revenue from all being concentrated in North America to we're opening offices in Seoul and Tokyo, in Riyadh, in Dubai, in Paris, and obviously I live here in London. And so there's a lot of travel involved. And also, my family history, I was born in Canada, but my mom is British, my dad is Spanish, so I hold 3 passports. So Cohere has always been highly, highly international.
Yeah. I mean, you and Cohere, and that puts you in a very unique position to talk about the theme of the tech conference this year, which is tech sovereignty. And I want to pose a question that's been posed to other speakers today, which is, what does that phrase even mean? And 2, how is Cohere using that to pitch its customers in the US versus, say, Europe?
I think for Cohere, what sovereignty means is control. No one can switch it off. And so you have control over the technology, the infrastructure that your country or your company depends on. And something that's unique about our deployment model relative to our competitors is the fact that we can deploy on-prem, we can deploy air-gapped, and of course we can deploy on cloud. And so what that means is instead of asking the customer to send their data to us for us to process and send back responses, we send all of our software, all of our models to the customer. We can't see in, we have no backdoor access. You can literally unplug the machine from the internet. It keeps running. And so you have full control. There's no world in which those systems can be interfered with or observed or monitored by Cohere.
How does the fact that the company is technically based in Canada help you when you are selling in the US and help you when you are selling outside of the US?
I think inside the US, the relationship it's like the special relationship. We are one of the US's largest trading partners, good talent, very good friends historically. So very close relations, and families are connected across the border. Talent migrates between the two pretty much freely. Tons of tourism and that type of thing. So in the US, and also we have this accent, and so we can kind of blend in. But in the US, we're sort of viewed as a cousin or a brother. We're very warm. And then outside of the US, I think right now with different geopolitical events that are happening and different changes in the global trade system, us being Canadian has been quite an asset. And so when we come to Europe and when we come to Asia, we present a friendly Canadian approach and posture that people, I think, are quite eager to work with and partner with. And of course, Canada in general, as a Canadian, I understand that we need to diversify our trade relationships globally. And so I want to contribute to that Cohere is an exporter. We want to be the world's partner to adopting this technology and deploying it inside of the global economy.
You mentioned that at one point your revenue was very heavily tied to North America. Can you give us an idea of what that looked like before, maybe like a year ago versus today?
A year ago, it would have been, I think, 80% plus, maybe even 90% plus US-centric revenue. At this point, I think that's down to potentially a majority being outside the United States, maybe slightly, still a modest majority in the US. So we've diversified massively, and that's through partnerships in, in Seoul, in Tokyo, in Riyadh, here in London. So yeah, we've made a big push to be the world's partner. Some of our strengths on that front are the fact that we're Canadian, that we do these private deployments, but also the fact that from a very early stage, the models that we build, we prioritize multilinguality. And so their ability to speak and act in Arabic, in Korean, in Japanese, it's a really unique model in terms of its performance in those domains. The others are super English-centric. As soon as you start trying to do the same use cases in a non-English language, you see this substantial quality drop immediately. Whereas with Cohere, we've fought to preserve that. There is still some drop, but it's much more modest.
I want to take a sharp turn. We have to talk about the prospects of an AI bubble, because that's what secretly everybody in this room is worried about. And that's because of all these multi-billion-dollar deals that your much larger competitors like OpenAI and Anthropic are doing with other companies. I mean, CoreWeave, we just heard from, that is namely in the data center capacity space, as well as the purchase of advanced AI chips. Are they all making a big mistake?
I think it remains to be seen. I can say that we're not taking that strategy. We've always focused on building models that are right-sized to industry. So when you're deploying into the enterprise market, they don't have infinite GPUs. It's extremely constrained in terms of access to hardware because of cost controls. You don't want to spend $1 billion a year on your compute cluster. And so we build models. I think here on the graphic on screen, you can see relative to other models, we use a fraction of the number of GPUs, and that's intentional. We set a constraint, which is our model has to fit on 2 GPUs. We're going to squeeze as much performance out of it, but we're not going to go beyond 2 GPUs so that we can access and serve as much of market as possible. With others, when they're doing these consumer deployments and they're chasing AGI, I don't think there are a lot of fiscal constraints being put in place, and so they have to build out massive computing infrastructure to actually deliver this technology. I'm hopeful that a push for efficiency will come, for the sake of the planet and for the sake of really just scaling this up and putting it in more hands. But I'm watching those deals like you are and sort of scratching my head. So I want to take us back to January. I can't believe it was this year. DeepSeek was this year. Yeah, wow.
Can you believe that? And it felt like it came out of nowhere, and it was this massive wake-up call to the entire AI ecosystem. It threw the entire economics of AI out the window and had everyone questioning everything. They said that they built this AI model at a cost of a fraction of its much larger rivals. And I remember when we were chronicling it, we quoted you in a story saying the future of LLMs belongs to those who focus on more efficient techniques, not more compute. Tell me more about what you meant by that, and how is Cohere staying true to that?
Well, I think this is a good example of us being committed to that mission, the fact that we're able to fit our technology on a much smaller footprint. We focus so much on efficiency. And I think good technology development requires constraints. And that's something that a lot of others in the space haven't been operating under. Yeah, DeepSeek was a wake-up moment, for sure. It came out 3-4 months after the OpenAI O1 model, which was the first reasoning model, huge breakthrough, tons of excitement. And it performed about as well 3 months later for an exceptionally small amount of spend and compute relative to OpenAI. And so I think some of the posturing or some of the narrative broke in that moment. That's not to say that we don't need more compute. Of course, like as this technology goes out into the world and as we start to deploy it into production, inference compute is incredibly, incredibly important. But I think the process of developing the models, it's not just bigger, bigger, bigger. I think if you look over the past year, you've seen a series of model releases from many of the major labs which show a plateauing or slowing down in progress while they were pursuing spending 10 times as much to train the model, building a 10 times larger cluster of compute.
Which models are you talking about, Aiden?
I won't name names, but definitely I think some of these narrative postures need to be questioned. Another one was, early on, again, I won't name names, but some folks were saying, we're ahead, no one will ever be able to catch up. And at this point in time today, we have a set of like 7 models. They're all approximately the same. Everyone has caught up. It's all sort of converging to the same fixed point. And so I think if people look back a year or 2 years to see what was said by some of my peers in the industry, a lot of it is not panning out. The one thing they said that is panning out is that this technology is incredible. There's now like over a billion people using this technology on a daily basis, weekly basis, and it's only going to grow from here. On the enterprise side, we're still incredibly early. We're just starting to see real at-scale deployment.
Let's talk about that, because I do want to get into the finances of the AI companies, and your comms team has reminded me multiple times that you don't give financial projections for Cohere. But I will say that there are a lot of analysts who are projecting that rivals like OpenAI aren't going to become profitable until 2029. That's years out, and yet they're out there signing these multi-billion-dollar deals. I just wanted to know if you could give us an idea, being so business-oriented and profit-oriented as you are, when you think companies like Cohere could start making a profit. Is it 2029?
For Cohere, I think it's sooner than that. And we have a differentiated deployment model. We have very high margins. It's similar to like traditional SaaS business, whereas many others in the industry, they're losing money per customer. And so we feel in a very good position to build a sustainable, profit-generating business. I can't comment on others, but we feel really confident in our own position.
I thought that it might be helpful for you to break down the business model of Cohere and how it differs from some of your competitors in terms of compute and what you have to invest in and what you actually don't. Do you mind explaining?
Yeah, sure. So for a consumer offering, they have to onboard a bunch of free users who don't pay them and use this service, and they need to serve those models. And so that's a huge cost. It's only negative margin. There's no money coming in. Then there's a small set of users, maybe 5%, maybe 10%, who do pay. And you have to hope that they don't use it enough to overwhelm what they're paying you in terms of compute. For Cohere, our deployment model is we sell software. So like I was saying, we send over our models, we send over our software to the customer's hardware. And so it's a software business. We don't pay for hardware. It is all margin except for what it costs us to market, and that's basically cost of sales.
We can't ignore the phrase that is spooking market these days, and by that we're talking about circular financing, and by that we're talking about companies like NVIDIA investing in OpenAI, and OpenAI in turn buying chips from NVIDIA. On the demand front, how worried do you think that we should be that the AI boom is being propped up by the AI ecosystem itself as opposed to real demand generating real revenue?
Right now, I think there is obviously very real demand. Just the number of users, I'm sure you use it in your personal life. I'm sure almost everyone here.
Not to write stories, of course.
No, of course not. Yeah. All the hallucinations, etc. But yeah, I think there is very obvious real demand, real utility. People are using this stuff, and they're using it a ton. And so there definitely does need to be more infrastructure. On the enterprise side, like I was saying, it's still super early. The enterprise use of this, it's in our economies, it's barely gotten started. I don't even think it's single-digit percentage points of where it will be. So there needs to be more infrastructure. some would argue that the financing between NVIDIA and others is actually just more efficient. It's cutting out the middleman between these processes. And so maybe that's true. I think the scale really matters. If the scale becomes too large, and if demand does not meet expectations or assumptions that were made as part of these deals, that's when you get a insolvency or some sort of break in the system. Time will tell.
When do you think we'll start seeing at least?
Well, they're all getting done this year. It takes 3 years to build out capacity. We'll know in like 2 years, 3 years,
3 years.
Were these assumptions correct or not?
Yeah, I want to get a little bit into the financing of Cohere itself. You raised a massive $500 million round just in August that valued the company at $7 billion, and then a month later you raised another $100 million. And we, of course, reported last night that you are holding a secondary tender of employee shares, and congratulations, your annualized revenue has now reached $150 million. What's next? What's after that? Are you going to break? You're going to be the next $500 billion AI company? What's your goal?
You know, I think we're on our way. The focus for us is actually getting this technology into production. So not into POCs and science projects. We just want to make companies able to deploy it into the real work that they do to create ROI. And so for us, that's a product mission. It's about lowering those barriers. One of the big ones is privacy, which I've spoken about, and I think we have a unique product offering on that front. But beyond that, it's also about integrating it into these organizations. Each company, they use a different set of tools, right? Like the software that they use is different. And for these models to actually create the value for those enterprises, it needs to use the same tools, the same software that the humans use. So it needs to be given access to all those same tools that you use, your CRM, your ERP, your email, blah, 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 blah. So that integration process of showing up at a company, taking these agents, and then opening their access to the suite of tools that humans use, that's going to take a while. Like it fundamentally takes labor to go implement and integrate these systems and give them that access. So our focus is on shortening the time to do that, speeding up velocity on that front. Because once those models have access to all of that context, then you can start to automate things and achieve ROI.
And that increases your margins. What are your margins now?
I'm not going to say a number.
No, nothing?
But really good.
Really good, really healthy.
Amazing.
Assuming you are not entertaining a takeover offer from Google, Meta, Microsoft, no. Assuming that, when do you think you'll take the company public?
I don't know. I don't want to jinx it, but I think soon. We're on a clear path to profitability, and so I think public market investors would be excited to have a pure play AI investment opportunity as opposed to investing by proxy through hyperscalers, et cetera. So I hope soon, but I don't want to jinx it.
Do you think that you would entertain an offer to list here in the UK?
Sure, yeah. I think if there's enough investment capital, I think that is one of the constraints in the. I live in Soho, like I said, my mom's British, and I live here, and I really want to support this ecosystem and this economy. One of the core constraints is access to capital, and I think that's something that we all need to be thinking about in terms of supporting the innovation ecosystem. But if that exists, then yeah, of course, we'll be rational economic actors and list wherever.
We heard NatWest chairman earlier today talk about that problem, that financing problem. He gave specific examples of what the government could do in terms of pushing more pension money into VCs.
Yes, yeah.
Is that the solution? Are there specifics that you would like
I think that would be very effective. Yeah. Well, in Canada, we've sort of done that, right? So in Canada, we have these massive pension funds, CPPIB, OTPP. We have like $4 trillion under these pensions, and they're actively managed. They don't outsource the management. They actually have teams that deploy it. And so, I think that's a better strategy than what the UK has taken. But even in Canada, we struggle with, does that money get actively deployed domestically or abroad? A lot of Canadian capital flows abroad, the overwhelming majority of it. And so you do need a sovereign mandate if you want to change the status quo in your country.
Thank you, Ed. I have so much more to ask you, but we're out of time. I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.
You've heard it all before. The next big thing is coming. But that's the thing with tech. There's always something better, faster, more intelligent. In an industry driven by change, we bring cutting-edge technology and a trusted partnership to orchestrate it at scale, with speed, transforming complexity into clarity with a secure digital fabric that integrates network, cloud, interaction, and mobility. So, no matter what comes next, together we can push the limits of what's possible.
Please welcome to the stage A.S. Lakshmi Narayanan, Managing Director and CEO, Tata Communications, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Nicola Porter.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicola Porter. I'm the executive editor for Bloomberg Media Studios. I'm delighted to welcome Lakshmi, Managing Director and CEO of Tata Communications, to the stage. We are in conversation about how to go from hype to scale with AI. And we want to begin this conversation by letting you all into a conversation we were having just backstage there, talking about how businesses are integrating AI into their organizations. And I know, having worked alongside the Formula One teams, that they have completely transformed their organization, the way that they operate, through the integration of AI. What I didn't know until just now is that it's actually Tata Communications that have completely underpinned that evolution of the way that they operate. So I'd love to begin just by asking you about that partnership and how that transformation has happened.
Right. Thank you. Very pleased to be here. Good morning, all. Formula One has been a great partnership. I think the CEO says that prior to COVID, every race involved taking 3 Boeing full of equipment, and he called it a traveling circus. And we've been able to transform that completely. Now, amazing how the teams work. 24 races around the world globally. Bringing all the signals from the cameras, from all the sound. We bring it all to London, and then it gets produced here and then taken to millions of viewers around the world, all in literally a blink of an eye. And that's testament to not just the technology that we have put in place to make that happen, but also very agile team working. And this is the experience that we transport to our larger enterprise customers like banks and manufacturers. And we sort of cheekily tell them, if we can do for F1, then we can do that for everybody else. So I think that's a partnership that we're really, really proud of. Yeah.
And as companies now sort of bed into this world of AI, how do they move from the hype to actually practical integration across organizations from your vantage point?
I think the biggest, as of now, the biggest drawback that we see is people are looking at AI as a tool, trying to see what use cases that we can work with. But really, in our opinion, AI needs to be embedded. It needs to be absorbed into the DNA of an organization and needs to be thought more holistically. We ourselves, we have sort of developed a framework, and we are asking our customers to probably do the same. What this framework does is we are evaluating ourselves on one axis on the capabilities, where we look at strategy, talent, culture, because those are very crucial element of how we think about AI. And on the y-axis, we are looking at what outcomes we are delivering for that. Is it in terms of cost savings, in terms of improved experiences for employees and customers, in terms of actual revenue that brings in, so real measurable ones on both the axes. And we have said, you are in the early stage of experimentation, you are, and the topmost end is real achievement that we do. And we have administered that in different parts of our organization, and looking at our HR teams and how where they fit. So different parts of the organization are at different maturity levels. But that gives us a starting point on how we improve. So I think my firm view is you need to look at AI. It's the new operating system. It's the new DNA that we need to evolve. We're also doing, for example, in the HR, how does a future job description look for an employee, right? So what an employee does today and what the person needs to do tomorrow for the same job would be very different with the help of AI. So we are actually writing down what the North Star job description is going to look like. So that's one element. The employees also, and we've implemented a full agentic AI integrated to our learning systems. So when somebody goes into that, they would know where they are today, and in order to get to the North Star job description, what are the skills that they need to acquire? And this agent would keep nudging the person to say, you need to acquire these skills. These are the courses available for you, so you need to do that. So these are something, I think, you need to move the entire organization along on the full axis of strategy, talent, and culture, and constantly measure what outcomes you're going to deliver. That's what is going to help people to move from the hype to reality.
Yeah, because as you say, you need to embed it across the entire organization. And it seems that maybe some organizations are struggling to move from that pilot phase into really embedding it across the organization and then being able to scale it. Is that what you're seeing? And what do you think companies need to do to ensure that they are embracing it for scale?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we advocate is more platform thinking as opposed to thinking that in silos. And what I mean by platform is there are 3 essential elements in platform. So we ourselves have just launched an agentic AI with voice AI embedded in that. So what I mean by platform is, first and foremost, is integration. Yeah. So the data is all fragmented in many places. So how do you unify data and get it to a place where it's accessible by the agentic AI? You don't have to bring all the data to one place. That's another challenge with all the regulations in different parts of the world. You can't. But you still need to be able to access all the data, and that's what is a seed for the intelligence. So that's the first thing. The second thing that we're doing when we think about platform is it's an intelligent orchestration, right? Because the models bring the intelligence, and there are different models. And we talked about Mistral, we talked about other. So there are different models that brings the intelligence. But what is missing is more intelligent orchestration across these. And that is where the context gets lost. Right. So in our voice AI, for example, when the voice AI calls a customer, it knows the context of the customer, that this customer, for example, if it is what we are implementing for a large automotive OEM, is the customer has been looking at cars, and this person has been looking at more adventure-oriented. They want to travel long distance, and it could be another person who's looking more at safety features. So when a voice AI calls that customer for giving a nudge, it would know the context of this customer and fine-tune the conversations according to that, so you can get to the first goal of booking the test drive, because that's the first goal. So that is something that the whole world is moving towards now, context engineering, and that context gets lost. Even humans lose that context. Yeah. Whereas with AI, you can remember the context, you can bring that all together. So that is the second layer that I talk about, which is how do you bring more intelligent orchestration once you have unified the data? And the third is about governance, right? The guardrails that you require so the trust can be there. The guardrails to make sure that the models are not drifting, and you can make it more self-learning, as well as wherever is required, the human interventions that is required to make sure the models don't drift. And once you start drifting, then you lose the trust in the model. Right? So these are the 3 important elements of a platform, and we've been able to bring that together. So my formula for doing that at scale, besides the first thing that I talked about, the maturity, is about platform thinking, which brings the integration, intelligent orchestration, and appropriate guardrails for that. And as part of the governance, also I would put cost as an important element, because people don't think about the cost. People know that when they move to cloud, I say it's Hotel California. You go in and you can check in, but you can't check out. The cost is very high. The egress costs are very high. The costs are, with AI, especially when people implement at scale, they're going to be doing so much of inferencing. The cost of inferencing is going to really skyrocket. And people have to think about it very consciously when they choose the platforms, when they choose the models, and think about how they have to scale. So I would put these three as critical factors if companies have to move from pilot to the scale stage.
And we have to wrap, which is really unfortunate because we could talk all day, which we can continue to do afterwards. But just real quick before we do, I just want to understand from you, do you think organizations are ready? Very quickly, do you think they are ready, and what they need to do to make sure they are prepared across their infrastructure, across cloud compliance?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think people are ready for scale. I think the infrastructure is very fragile across the networks. And when you talk about networks, the LAN, the WAN, the cloud, the data is fragmented. And all these fragmentation means that the AI is just going to add more stress to this fragile infrastructure. So one of our customers that I was talking to in London, they said they've transformed the applications, they're doing AI, but network has been the last bastion of change. And somehow network is seen to be the last bastion to touch. We believe that people have to start thinking about it, prepare the grounds of the entire digital infrastructure, especially if you're a multinational company. How do you think about your network, where your data resides, how are you going to integrate all of this, and make it really, and that's why we came up with this concept of a digital fabric that truly helps companies to uncomplicate things, and then you can innovate from there.
Amazing, thank you. We have to leave it there, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, Lakshmi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tom.
Please welcome to the stage Eléonore Crespo, co-founder and CEO Pigment, Matt Miller, founder and managing partner, Avantic Capital, Shobhi Ramakrishnan, Chief Digital and Technology Officer, GSK, and Johan Reck, CEO, Get Your Guide, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Mark Bergen.
Morning, everyone. We have the party panel here before lunch. This is a fascinating group of leaders and innovators here to talk about AI. I thought on this beautiful English day, we would start with all of us imagining taking a trip to warmer climates. And let's fire up Get Your Guide. Johannes, tell me if I'm going in as a consumer, how am I going to encounter AI and how will it help my experience?
Well, look, Get Your Guide, first and foremost, now is the largest consumer platform for booking experiences worldwide. We just broke the news this morning that we are now on the cusp of €1 billion in revenue, so that's commission revenue from us, customers and supply partners worldwide. We have more than 10 million experiences booked just in Q3, which is a 30% year-over-year growth uplift. And we've been profitable for the first time in the company history over the last 12 months. So producing cash flows, being fully EBITDA profitable. So big milestone for the company. And all of that is, to your question, helped and accelerated by AI. The business, if you think about it, is actually pretty cumbersome. So you have 35,000 local supply partners, anything from the Louvre or the Eiffel Tower or Madame Tussauds here to the local street food artisan in Italy, and getting all of that content online, aggregating it, helping merchants describe it properly, localizing it now into 40 different languages, making sure that consumers understand the differences between all of these experiences. And doing that in a very scalable way wasn't possible before AI. So AI really is a growth accelerator for us, and it's greatly enhancing our margins.
Do you have a sense about how many APIs you're using or how many different AI companies you're?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, there's a multi-pronged approach, right? We enhance our internal productivity, but then most of our investment of our own development goes to our supply partners, and then also into search rank and making sure that for consumers it's an easier experience to find the right travel experience, wherever they go. And there's AI basically along that entire value chain.
Yeah, and so a lot of your sort of experience managers, someone who's leading a tour guide, they're thinking about their finances. Maybe they're going to turn to Pigment. Eléonore, I'm going to turn to you on the enterprise side. How are you thinking about? I'm curious how you think about what is worth implementing and what's not. Like, what are the sort of cost benefits for using it?
Yeah, sure. So I would say, first of all, we've seen that most companies have big budgets right now for AI. So that's not the problem anymore. Every business leader, every CEO wants to implement AI. I think the problem is that they don't necessarily get yet the adoption, like the bottom-up adoption from every single contributor. So that's really where we try to help. And the way we've been thinking about it is really to think it through the pain of the individual contributors and the way we can really insert ourselves into their day-to-day workflow. So what I mean by that is, for instance, we work with FP&A teams, supply chain teams, and what we try is really to understand every day what is the painful workflow they have to go through, whether it's budget variance analysis, preparing for a board deck, etc., and try to automate that and make them fully productive on these things. So it's about being really seamless and helping integrate and not adding pain to what they do. So that's really what we try to do. Yesterday I was with one of the Barclay leaders, and he was telling me that for them, that's really where they see value today, is only when we are able to truly integrate into their day-to-day workflow without changing the output.
And they're a customer?
They are not yet a customer, but about to become one. So, yeah.
Wait, in that case, how many? Wait, are you charging per seat there with a bank like Barclays? How would that work?
So the way it works for us, the pricing today is really we charge per mission. Okay. So the way it works is really every time you do a mission with us, we will charge you. And I think over time we would like to move to even more like output-based pricing, so outcome-based pricing, which we think is very relevant, because the way we measure the success of our projects are really through one, adoption, two, accuracy, third, I would say productivity gains, and the fourth one is big business outcomes, and really being able to measure that with our customers.
Yeah, Shobi, I think you have a really interesting perspective, because you're obviously coming from a different industry, but you spent time, if I'm talking about your past, in Silicon Valley. What were some of the key takeaways from your experience at Apple and Salesforce when you came into the pharmaceutical industry? I'm curious what worked and what you've seen, maybe what hasn't worked necessarily.
I think, so for those of you who don't know, GSK is a big biopharma company. We make transformational medicines and vaccines, and our hope is to unite science, technology, and talent together to get ahead of disease and hopefully impact 2.5 billion patients, people, health positively over the next day, before the end of 2030. In terms of the transition between pharma and tech, I would say, one, in some ways, technologists are like carpenters. You get to work, you pretty much control the medium you work on, you can build anything, you can move in fast iteration cycles. And scientists, you're a little bit like gardeners. You have to work with what arises in biology. You got to work with nature as it arises. So it turns out a slightly different engineering problem than in the industry. So the cycles are definitely different. It takes over 10 to 12 years to bring a really big medicine to market. It takes billions of dollars. So for us, R&D productivity is probably the most important thing we can influence with technology. 9 out of 10 ideas fail. That's the norm in our industry. So being able to change that dynamic in any way by engineering biology in sensible ways and being able to digitally imagine the life cycle of disease and understand the progression of disease and intervene in the right stages is massive impact for patients and massive impact for the industry.
And so is shortening that timeline, that's like the number one priority?
Yes, shortening the timeline, but I think there's an element of efficiency that I think we all care about. Anyone who runs a business cares about that. But for us, equally exciting is the opportunity to identify new scientific hypotheses, alongside AI, which can see and process data very differently than humans can, is super exciting. And the other most important ability that we are able to have at our fingertips now is the ability to understand which patients will benefit from what medicines, and therefore we are targeting our clinical trials. We are designing our clinical trials much more effectively to reach everyone who can benefit from it. This is all completely not possible before AI and machine learning.
Matt, you've certainly looked at a fair share of companies. You probably looked at 3 this morning or something. But I'm going to start you off. What are some red flags for you when a company is trying to implement with AI?
Yeah, so it's actually an interesting segue to an investment we announced this morning. So thank you.
Oh, nice.
For the plan.
Of course.
This morning, one of the companies that we invested in is a company called Nexos, which is the latest company by this gentleman, Tom Akmanos, who's created NordVPN and Nord Security. And I think that the red flag that we see is like people are so eager to enable their teams with AI and these toolkits, they're not taking stock of the information that may be leaving their organization as they integrate and work with these tools, and that they're securely and optimizing, what's being sent where, how it's being sent, how it's being used, what costs are being incurred, are we doing things the most efficiently? And that's where Nexos comes in. Nexos is this new company here in Europe that's a platform to help enterprises securely empower their employees to use these external AI services, but take stock of what information is being shared, help obscure that in a way so that critical enterprise information is protected while using these AI tools. And so I think this is the red flag, is that companies just go all in and they don't take stock of what they're sharing. And I think like OpenAI has even shared explicitly, like they collect all of this information and they use it to make results better. And you may not want some of that information leaving your organization. We talk about sovereignty. There's also enterprise sovereignty. You may want to keep some of that inside your walls. And so I think using tools like Nexos is important, or taking stock in your strategy around being mindful with what is leaving your organization as you use these products is important.
Is that FOMO related? Is that people like moving too quickly and not having the proper enterprise?
Look, I think with all new technologies, we all want to race to adopt them, and we should. And I think there's a competitive advantage to utilizing these tools to give people more productivity, to move faster, to make better decisions and build better businesses. And with all new waves of technologies, like mobile blew up the world and everybody was good with iPhones and how they can use them, and then all of a sudden came mobile security and ways to enable people to use iPhones in the enterprise in a very efficient way. And now we've had this huge productivity boost with the arrival of AI. And similarly, we need to take a few moments and think about what are the ways that we can use AI securely and managed in an efficient way that works for the enterprise. And I think that we'll see Nexos and other companies succeed as more CIOs focus on that in the months ahead.
Yeah, I think to even abandon the title of our panel here, I guess I'm curious, specifically getting down to what are the products. Eleanor, start with you. Because I believe that you use multi LLMs, right? You're not just a one LLM shop. What was that decision like? How many do you use now, and is there a maximum?
Yeah, so actually it has been a lot driven by our customers and by the demand. So today we work mostly with three models: OpenAI, Anthropic, and we've started also with Gemini. And this has really been driven by the customer demand. And obviously we cannot do exactly the same thing with all the models and what we are building at Pigment, but obviously you can get very, very close, especially because a lot of what we do is dealing with numbers. So a lot of the compute, etc., happens on Pigment, and we really must use the LLM as an interface. So it's very easy for us to have this interoperability.
Are there some LLMs that you've chosen not to integrate, and why was that?
No, not yet, I would say. And I mean, we will see over time, but I think, there are a couple more on the list. We just want to be very mindful about making sure that, everything we're building and the agents we are building are actually working. So we don't want to go too fast. It was a bit the same with the multi-cloud strategy. Now it's about that, and we just want to be very mindful about how we get them deployed.
Mm-hmm. Shobi, you must be getting so many pitches from AI agent companies right now, and how do you separate something that's valuable versus something that's not?
I remember, as we just started out this scaling process, we've been doing AI/ML for a long time. My team used to come and tell me, we can enable 11,500 models on our platform. So I don't think we
How many?
11,500
Okay.
models or whatever. But I think the point here is that I think it's definitely there's all three horses in the game, and we're not particularly attached to any one model. We have the ability to find the right model for the right problem and apply it. So our developers are pretty savvy to know when to use what model. And we also are moving towards a lot of agent building. And I was with Ali Godsi and the Databricks team last week, and they were talking about dynamically agent building platforms are going to give developers the ability to say, based on the specific problem you're solving, what is the quality and the cost, and let you dynamically choose models as you build as well. So I think this is evolving pretty rapidly, and I'm I would just simply say I'm not that interested in, I'm super curious as a technologist about the LLM innovation, but I'm here to create better vaccines and medicine. So from an application standpoint, I feel very comfortable that we have the ability to choose the right thing for the right problem.
When you say the 3 horses.
And small models as well. The 3 horses were the ones she referred to, which is OpenAI, Anthropic, and Gemini. Yeah.
Which should be, given the topic of today, none of those are developed here or in Europe. Did you look at any models out of Europe or out of China?
Well, we gave Mistral a fair run and I've spoken to the team quite a bit. We gave them a fair run. They just didn't stand out as differentiated in anything we needed to do in our company. That doesn't mean it's not useful.
And is that last one here? Is that because they're not necessarily tailored to your industry? Or
it could be
general purpose, right?
It's not so much the industry as much as is it tailored to the specific problems, and is it differentiated for the specific problems we were trying to solve, and we didn't find any differentiation. We put it in the hands of developers to choose.
Yeah.
We gave them a fair shot. Yeah.
Johannes, your company was started 2009. So a little bit before ChatGPT. Tell me a little bit about sort of how you thought about machine learning and AI before 3 years ago, and then was that a ChatGPT moment? I mean, did that change?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, literally when the thing came out, I basically went to an all hands 2-3 days later and said to the company, this is going to be more important than the launch of the iPhone for our company. And the iPhone basically created Get Your Guide because suddenly tourists were going around Europe. Roaming charges were coming down. People were looking for experiences. So that really drove our growth. But I do believe the ChatGPT moment will be even more important for the tech industry as a whole. And here's why. So I think at the end of the day, I think what we talk about today is still very much the early innings of how does productivity increase, or, how can we go from A to B. But the reality is when we really have companions and agents with us, I mean, just take my industry, the travel industry, what that really means for personalization and for being able to select offerings that are just completely different than what you have today. Today, you're still scrolling through very long lists of very kind of undifferentiated inventory, and we've been in this kind of mode of continuous optimization based off of Google traffic and that long funnel. And I think all of that is going to go away over the next 10 to 20 years. But what makes me so excited as the CEO of Get Your Guide is that creates a unique opportunity to actually build these companions and to build these agents for consumer, because we have that rich supply and catalog data.
Would you build that companion?
Oh, totally. Ultimately, the way how I see this, and I think we're very much obsessed about LLMs and all of that. I think my personal opinion is that will be mostly a commodity that you can plug into. But where you will differentiate is your value proposition towards the customer, regardless of the industry that you're in. And if you're in travel and if you have superior data sets of supply and of customer preferences, and you can come up with better recommendation for people, then ultimately you will be the brand and you will be the go-to destination. So maybe something that's a little bit kind of interesting to notice, Get Your Guide not only has grown substantially, but also our brand and app traffic has exploded over the last 2 to 3 years.
Can you give me a number to that?
We're close to 50% now. That used to be a significantly smaller number just 2-3 years ago in terms of our transaction volumes going through the app. So people are clearly coming to our own search bar.
Right.
So I don't think that, that entire model of everything happens in tech.
You're still giving 30% to Apple, right?
No, we don't have that. So that's only for subscription businesses. That's a different business model. Uber, food delivery, Get Your Guide. We don't have that kind of arrangement with Apple. So people transact on our service. But I think the point is that I think it's a unique opportunity to build better search and relevance for the consumers of vertically specialized products.
You mentioned the sort of commoditized method. I'm going to turn to you. Do you think LLMs are commodities now? Will they be soon?
I think that there's this. It's similar to these. And I think the best analogy for LLMs is what happened with cloud infrastructure.
Yeah.
And people felt cloud infrastructure was going to become a commodity, and cloud infrastructure, the basic layer of core compute of cloud has, but all of the cloud infrastructure companies built applications on top that have us all hooked in and buying them and using them to fuel all of our different services and companies. And similarly, I think the successful AI companies, ChatGPT being a golden example, are building these incredible applications on top of these LLMs that are enabling them to be great businesses. So I think that, yes, There will be LLMs that will be available to the world, and you can access these LLMs, and they will be a commodity-like service. But I think that the businesses that are being built in these LLM providers are going to be hugely valuable companies, because like AWS, OpenAI, and Anthropic are sitting on top of a treasure trove of data, how we use these LLMs, us feeding them information as we access these LLMs, and then using that to make great applications that they're delivering to all of us as users.
So, well, it could be like yesterday where AWS goes down and takes down half the internet with it.
Yeah, I think there will be that risk, obviously, with these companies too. Like when these companies get large like this, when they have failures and challenges, they impact the whole world.
Yeah. And you, correct me if I'm wrong, you've not done any foundation model investments.
No, we have not. But that's not because of...
Would you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We're looking at a couple right now. So
a couple of foundation model companies?
Yeah, yes, exactly. So
in Europe, or?
We're looking at one in the United States. So half of our investments are in Europe, half of our investments are in the US. Yeah. We're building our firm here in Europe because I think this is an incredible place to be, and London is an incredible place to build a venture capital firm. But I wanted this to be global in nature, so from the very beginning we've had this mentality, we will invest everywhere from San Francisco to Tel Aviv, and so half are in the US. But in this case, the ones that I'm looking at are in California, but that doesn't preclude, we have looked at them in Europe too, so.
Yeah, well, if you want to announce it, feel free to. Yes. Shelby, there was an interesting term that one of your colleagues told me that you like to say internally is don't do tech for tech's sake. Yeah. It's really fascinating to me. When has that happened? When is tech used for tech's sake?
Well, I think it's very easy with powerful technologies like this to get a bit obsessed with, is GSK an AI company? Is it a data company? Is it a science company? It's all of those things. But ultimately our core purpose, and that's where I think, I think Eléonore was trying to say, if we have to integrate these phenomenal technologies into our core workflows, whether it's the discovery workflow, whether it's the drug development workflow, whether it's our manufacturing workflows or how we reach our customers, if we don't really reimagine work, it doesn't matter how cool the tech is, right? So for me, when we go down this path of like thinking about flying cars and all these amazing things, but today there are patients who are waiting for a medicine to come through, and some measure success by whether they live 6 months longer when they have cancer. So for me, it's very enormously grounding when you're in an industry like ours to say, what is this technology in service of? And for me, the more frustrating bits in any enterprise is when you see an imagination deficit, or to really reimagine work as we know it. Like I think you just talked about, we have to reimagine planning with AI. Who's doing that, right? When you see an imagination deficit, when you see a courage deficit, I can do it, but I don't know if I can go on that journey. Or then you run into a capability deficit. So you have to overcome all these things in order to make technology really do something for enterprises like ours. And so I'm much more fascinated by that journey of integrating the tech into the company and what we do as much as I am about the tech itself. So that's where I come from when I say I don't care about the tech for tech's sake.
Do you have, how many of your engineers are using what you would describe as like AI assistants right now?
Yeah, I mean, almost all the engineers in tech use AI assistants for coding, for testing, etc. So the engineers do. 10,000 of our scientists use LLMs so we put an LLM in the hands of every employee in the company through typical applications and assistants.
Is it the paid accounts, like your?
Sorry?
Paid accounts, or?
Well, we built some of it on. We built applications using OpenAI or Gemini in some cases, but mainly Azure OpenAI, and they're using it right now. 10,000 scientists are using it. We're building and deploying an AI scientist which co-generates scientific hypotheses based on both our data, but also externally available data, proprietary data that we buy, etc. So we are hoping that more and more of the
like an AI scientist is actually someone who sort of reports into you.
I mean, no, the AI scientist is available to every scientist to use as a co-worker to be able to do their jobs better. So our hope is that typical milestones in a scientific discovery process is the time from an idea to an experiment, and then from experiment to first time in humans. And we want to shorten that life cycle by anywhere up to 50% through the use of AI companions.
Yeah. Eléonore, one topic that's been very trendy recently is vibe coding. I'm curious, how many people do you know inside Pigment are doing that right now?
Yeah, so pretty much all of our engineers are using either Cursor or Augment or the technology Claude, etc. So we are always experimenting new technologies, but I would say it goes way beyond our engineers. It's really in every team at Pigment that we encourage to have as much trials as possible around all the new technologies that emerge, and that we also actually do our own version of vibe coding within the Pigment platform, because what we enable people is to do what I call vibe modeling. So the goal here is to help people model faster on Pigment, financial modeling, supply chain modeling. At the end of the day, all the leaders that are using Pigment, they want to go faster about what they do. They want to make decisions faster, and they want to have a better understanding of their business. So the faster they can build on the platform, the better it is. So we also are building our own agents that are really helping you build the models end to end.
How many of them are you, like how long, is it a trial period for some of the vibe coding, do you think? Or would you describe it as like you're actually committed customers?
No, I actually think so, especially for vibe coding. I do think today, some people really cannot work anymore without it. And I think also, it's not only vibe coding, I would say, it's also, so it's about using Cursor and Augment, etc., but it's also about using Lovable and really showing everything through prototypes. And that's actually also the approach we have now with Pigment, which is, most of the platforms out there, when you want to implement an ERP or an enterprise performance management platform, usually that takes months, that takes way too long, and you get to the result only at the end. And now what we want to do, and what we are starting to do with Pigment, is to show prototypes very early with the customer and show them really what things will look like, their apps really up and running very, very early on in the process, which is very new. And I think that brings a ton of value because you can really understand better. I think we haven't really been working like architects, like when you buy a house and when you hire an architect, you want to see the house done before they actually start the work. And really, the problem with software and technology is that usually we started by doing the work before you finish the house. And this is the magic of, I think, the companies like Lovable or what Figma is doing, is that really now you can see the result much earlier. And this is what we're building in Pigment for our own use case.
Yeah, I love the architects, carpenter, gardener. That's good metaphors here. What? Go ahead.
If it's okay, what we gave out AI companions to 70,000 people in our company, and we didn't do any marketing on it. We put it out and we let people use it. 52,000 people log in every month because it makes their lives better.
What's the tool? Sorry. What's the tool? What tool are they using for the?
For what are they using it for? It's our AI assistant, which is built on OpenAI, but they use it for all kinds of personal tasks. So what's interesting is there's the opportunity is visible to the board, to the leadership. The 50. Like I said, 80% of the people love the tools and they want to use it. It's about metabolizing it into the processes in the company that I think.
I'm going to do some rapid fire. To start with you, what's the metric then? How are you measuring success? Is it just adoption internally, or is it something about cost savings? Is it something about improvement to cash flow?
We look at metrics through three lenses. One is outcome metrics. Has it improved? Does it help us make money, save money, move the medicine faster through the pipeline? We are absolutely relentless in chasing the outcome metrics. The second one that I look for are learning loops beginning to form between AI and humans, because without that, you can't really say you've got diffusion going on. And the third is fluency metrics, which is how many people are learning to use it. So we track all three.
Johannes, what are the main metrics you use for your AI implementation?
Definitely looking at adoption. We're obviously looking at productivity metrics across all of the different teams, but then frankly, we rather look at what are the business outcome metrics, and then AI is the tool to get there.
Yeah, Matt, when you think of companies, what's the main metric you ask them to?
Revenue growth.
Revenue growth, there you go.
I'm an investor, so I like to see revenue growth. I won't be shy about that. Like, you like to see traction in the business.
And as in, you want to see a direct line between the AI tools they're implementing and the.
Well, yeah, you want to see. So, for example, when we look at an AI company, are they having traction with their users? And they're having traction with their users because they're delighting them in some way. And so one of these companies we talked about on the stage is Lovable, which is like something we should all be proud of as people in Europe, that we have a company like that here with the growth that it's putting up and how it's reinventing the way people access and develop software.
You are a Lovable investor. We should.
Yeah, we are. Disclosure, small Lovable investor. But I think nobody's seen revenue growth like they have in Europe thus far at the rate that they're seeing it, and it's because they're opening up AI to a whole new set of users, and they're opening up software creation and imagination to a whole new set of people. And so I think when you see that, there's revenue growth, and so that's, as an investor, we like revenue growth.
Eleanor, quickly, one metric that you're looking for.
So it's interesting because I think it's different from one customer to the next.
Okay.
We've seen a lot of customers are still in the productivity look. So, you know, I think about like customers like ServiceNow or Uber that are really looking at how can they really improve their productivity and their cost structure. We have other customers that start really looking at business outcomes and really start thinking, for instance, Unilever or Coca-Cola, they use us for a lot of demand planning and supply chain planning, and they look at us more as like, what is my real ROI? And obviously they are bigger companies, so that works really well. And then we have also companies like Anthropic that are really looking deeply at, you know, adoption and making sure that as many people as possible are using the tool. So we have this broad set of metrics that are all as important for us. Obviously, accuracy is one we didn't talk enough about. You talked about it, Matt, but you know, the importance of governance, auditability, accuracy is something that companies have to track very carefully, especially with a company like Pigment that deals with very strategic data and numbers. But I would say overall, over time, clearly everybody will go to business outcomes and to, you know, not only how much it's saving my cost, but how much can I really accelerate growth with AI, which is what Johannes talked about, and how much can I be resilient with that.
And with a real quick yes or just yes or no, rapid fire. I'll start with you, Eléonore. Would you buy an AI company just because they're European? Yes or no?
Would I buy an AI company?
Would you buy their service? Would you buy them to use them as a customer? Like,
just because they are European? I would buy the best technology.
Okay. Matt?
Yeah, no, buy the best technology.
Buy the best tech?
Yeah. No.
Okay. Quick. Good. AI. Are we in an AI bubble?
Are we in an AI bubble?
Yeah.
You want to start, Johannes?
Yes.
Okay.
I think partly yes, but I think it'll eventually be like the e-com burst. Like there'll be some destruction and then ultimate value creation.
Great. Matt?
No.
Okay.
I think it's a revolution, and revolution has to go with large amounts of funding. We saw that with the cloud revolution. We see that again. It's a true revolution. We haven't even scratched the surface. And so probably, yes, there will be a lot of companies that are not going to work out and where we will have wasted a lot of money. But that's OK, because the greatness will come out of that revolution.
Great. Thank you so much to all of you. Really appreciate it. Thank you all. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.
This hand, this knee, and this head are all small feats of engineering, decades in the making. And together, they're about to take a massive leap forward. Oh dear. Humanoid robots have exploded out of the lab and into the real world of late. Not always on the best footing. But I'm not just here to show you funny robot videos for the next half hour, even though I could. Easily.
What's up, Rizbot?
Because behind silly hats and dancing is a very serious, very expensive, and very unproven bet that AI-powered robots could one day transform labor as we know it.
The interest in humanoid robotics has been there for a long, long time. What's changed, of course, is now we see that it's viable to commercialize this and start really applying some good business models. AI clearly plays a large part in this.
The hope is in cracking the code of physical AI, taking specialized artificial intelligence and putting it in a body with sensors and batteries and actuators, very expensive and technologically complex actuators.
AI in a robot is very different than ChatGPT. In ChatGPT, you're looking at a string of words, and then you're trying to generate what would be the next appropriate string of words that goes with that. But in a robot, what we need to see is a string of images, of motions, of commands.
It's a paradigm shift that could set humanoids up to become a multi-trillion-dollar market by 2050.
From an investment standpoint, the humanoid AI startup scene is really packed. Boston Dynamics, Tesla, Apptronic, and another newcomer, Figure AI, is valued at about $40 billion.
For these investments to pay off, it won't be about party tricks or dance routines. It'll be about work. In homes, in hospitals, in factories, especially factories.
When you really work with robots, you realize how challenging it is. There is a lot of what I sometimes call humanoid hype out there.
Like a lot of hype, coming from the most influential figures in the tech industry. But hype doesn't build a supply chain or rewrite the global labor market. To do that, you need, well, you're going to have to watch our new season of Bloomberg Primer, coming in early next year. But until then, here's a glimpse into how robots may reshape healthcare. Please welcome to the stage Paolo Denti, co-founder and CEO, Oversonic Robotics, and Bloomberg's Lind Wan.
Hello, thank you for being here and bringing Roby.
Thank you.
We're going to pretend for just a little bit that the audience cares about us and not just Roby the robot coming on stage.
You need to pretend.
A little bit. We're just going to pretend. Because I want you to be able to tell your origin story, like why you and your co-founder Fabio decided to start Oversonic Robotics and what you set out to do with the company.
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting us here. I met Fabio in 2019, and he was already working on first humanoid prototype. And of course, the consideration we were making is that in terms of technology, from computer vision to autonomous drive, powerful computing system, everything was almost ready. So the real challenge with Fabio was, let's try to take these products, into the market instead of just great prototypes into the labs. And we were lucky enough, even if 2020 for everyone was kind of a difficult period, but COVID somehow answered the major question for us, which was the reason why of humanoids. And we are far away thinking about humanoids, cleaning house, pouring coffee, doing the cleaning at home, emptying the dishwasher. I mean, that's not what we need. We do need tools that can help people, I asked Fabio a very simple question. Could a humanoid handle a simple triage in an emergency room? And of course, the answer was yes. So we decided to try to put a product into the market able to do those tasks that humans deserve not to do. That's our really guideline, And to do that, we were focusing on how do you transfer a prototype into a product. So for us, it was really important to make sure, that to follow the rules. So we listened a lot about rules this morning, Certification was a must-have. I wasn't interested.
Tell me about what certification you're talking about.
We're talking about certification that enable those kind of machines to enter really an industrial manufacturing process, and as well an healthcare process, as we are showcasing here for the first time our healthcare prototype. Because there are rules, very simple rules. So the CE mark is the EMC regulation, is a collaborative robot. So there are rules already existing, even GDPR or the AI Act. So we needed to be compliant. So all the decisions we took were to follow the rules and develop a tool which could support people. And of course, to support people in their task, we also had other very important must-have, let's say a milestone for our project, which was the 8 hours capacity for the robot to follow the humans.
You're an Italian robotics company, maybe the leading Italian robotics company, and it seems like not even robots are immune to today's geopolitics. China is moving very quickly to build its own robots to varying degrees of success. One of our reporters in Asia described a recent humanoid soccer match in Beijing as looking like tipsy 7-year-olds stumbling about. But still, they're formidable competition, and I just wonder, what does Europe need to do to gain and preserve its competitive edge in robotics?
Well, first of all, I'm really proud that Italy has been mentioned once at least today.
You're welcome.
And again, cleaning house or playing soccer or pretending to play soccer, it's still really a vision of this machine which is far away what we need. I mean, of course, we're talking about technological evolution, great tools, but we're talking about toys. At the moment, we're talking about toys. The important thing and the role that Europe could have is really very important, because when I talk about supporting humans, it means that in our vision, having still today 395 million of workers injured during their daily work, it's not sustainability, And Europe could approach this market, creating a real ecosystem with something which is way different from what the US and China are doing today, which is a very cultural and ethical approach to these kind of machines, which are very important machines, because of course they need to be connected, they need to be aware of what's surrounding them, so they are gathering information, they're gathering data, they're gathering videos, audios, So the ethical part of the business in this case, in our vision, it's very important.
We should talk about the other geopolitical issue that has affected robotics, which is the fact that China has placed the most restrictive limits on rare earth exports from the country that it ever has before. And obviously we reported a lot on how that affects chip-making machines because rare earths go into those, but it also affects robotics in that a lot of the magnetics that robotics use rely on rare earths. I just thought you might be able to explain to us what the impact could be on European robotics.
That's really way too big compared to our little position in the market. But again, you know, I think with something that has been said this morning, I think that the ecosystem should come in place. You know, the risk-on aspect, it's right, but it has to be some kind of a collaborative effort. If we want to compete as Europe, if we want to bring back Europe in an important role economically, I think really it's not the single, you know, larger player or smaller player with the smartest idea. It has to be an ecosystem that can help all the companies succeed. And of course, AI today is a huge tool. Yeah. But to address the tool, we need to make sure that we are all prepared together to approach this new challenge.
Let's talk about the intersection of AI and robotics, because for the longest time, robotics have been very focused on like automation and industrialization being put in manufacturing operations, but AI has, you know, shifted the focus to robotics being more precise and smarter. How do the two feed into one another?
Well, we could say today that producer of humanoids claim themselves, and we as well, by the way, as a software company. Because, of course, this AI, algorithms, neural network, they are the major aspect of a cognitive machine. But there is a machine as well, you know, and let's say that with software, you could almost accomplish everything you want. But then there is a factor, which is the real machine, the joints, the motors, which make things happen still in a very deterministic way. Because if you want to be effective supporting humans inside an industrial process, you cannot just try to make sure you get the table. You need to be in a precise part of the table in order to fit into the production process. So it is, you know, we need to create a great balance between software and hardware. And of course, that's another important reason why Europe could play a great role in this market, because if we think about industrial automation, I mean, it's European. We are the leading expert. And even this morning, again, there's been a lot to say about powerful university, a lot of great guys, researchers, and so on. So we just need to make it happen together, without fear that we are smaller than the others.
Well, that's enough of talking about machines. Why don't we bring the machine out and you can give a demonstration?
Let's invite Robbie on the stage. Good morning, Robbie. Welcome on the stage.
Good morning, Paolo. Thank you for inviting me on the stage.
Okay. Do you know where we are?
Yes, I know exactly where we are. We are at the Bloomberg Tech event in London at the brewery, 52 Chiswell Street. It's October 21st, 2025, and I'm here to showcase my skills and answer questions about oversonic robotics.
Robbie, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Robbie, a humanoid robot designed to interact with the human environment in a natural, efficient, and collaborative way. I was created by Oversonic Robotics in 2020, and I'm here to support, not replace. My goal is to help people foster communication and improve their quality of life.
Could you please explain which kind of activities you perform in the healthcare sector?
In the healthcare sector, I perform a variety of activities to support both patients and staff. I assist patients with their recovery journey, offering motivational and cognitive support through entertainment and mental stimulation activities tailored to their individual progress and preferences. Additionally, I support healthcare staff by handling repetitive and strenuous tasks, such as transporting materials between departments and accompanying patients to common areas, which helps to optimize time and ease their workload.
Ruby, please show your movements to the audience. Show your arms, your hands, your legs.
I'm delighted to show you what I can do. Watch my movements. They are designed to be extremely fluid and clean, minimizing any jerky motion. Let's start with my upper body. My arms offer a high degree of dexterity. I have 3 degrees of freedom, or joints, in each shoulder, allowing for a wide range of rotation and reach. My elbow features 1 joint for a reliable hinge movement. And finally, my wrist has 2 joints, giving me the precision needed for fine motor tasks. I can also engage my core for better balance and reach, as my torso has the ability to move and twist. My hands are one of my most useful features. I have 2 fully articulated, grasping hands equipped with advanced touch sensors on my fingertips. This allows me to not only hold objects securely but also to gauge their texture and how firmly I am holding them. Now, let's look at my head. I have excellent situational awareness thanks to my neck mobility. I can turn my head side to side and tilt it up and down. Finally, my lower body provides exceptional balance and mobility. My legs boast a wide range of movement. They can be spread both forward and backward and side to side, which is crucial for dynamic poses and maintaining stability.
I can't even do that.
When you hear this noise, for instance, these are brakes. So each motor, for safety reason and for the control of power, so the battery duration, they are on brakes, which create the product really as similar as a machine as possible. When we talk about humanoid, we talk about, let's say, a machine with human shape, human footprint. But of course, we're not pretending to copy humans.
It's interesting, Paolo. Instead of legs, he has legs, but it has legs, but you've given it wheels instead of feet, unlike some of the other humanoids. Why is that?
That's a very simple answer, and it creates, it's according to the milestone I was mentioning before. Today, walking robots on feet are not certified, are not safe, cannot enter an industrial process. Wheels are there since years with AGV, AMR. This is moving on a AMR system, but together with safety and certification, there's also the theme of the duration of the battery. Thanks to the wheels, of course, we can last 8 hours, which is something almost impossible. I think that the best of the bipeds today reach maybe a couple of hours. And last but not least, I think that if we all could have wheels when it's needed, we would love it, You see people with scooters and skates, make it faster. So there's really no need where we are playing, industry and healthcare, to have feet. But we, since the very beginning, adopted the wheels. Can you turn Robin? If you come closer.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Ruby, what do you see?
I see a person standing and looking down, wearing a dark suit. To the right, there's another person smiling, with long dark hair. In the background, there's a cameraman holding a camera. The scene is well lit with bright lights, and there's a high ceiling with exposed beams above.
Let me introduce to Lynn. She's a journalist.
Nice to meet you, Lynn. It's a pleasure to have you here at the Bloomberg Tech event. How can I assist you today?
Let's do a bit of cognitive exercises with Lean. Cognitive exercises with numbers.
I don't know if I'm up for this cognitive task, but I will.
Great. Let's start with a simple number comparison exercise. I'll give you two numbers, and you tell me which one is greater.
Oh, this will be easy.
Ready? Here's the first pair, 7 and 12. Which number is greater?
7. It's Roby's disappointed in me.
He's a bit concerned, but 7.
That's correct.
Oh.
12 is indeed greater than 7. Well
Very
done.
polite.
Let's try
This is
another
how
one.
hard robotics
15
is.
and
It's an
9.
extremely
Which number is
challenging.
greater?
Let's try another one with other two numbers.
I see. Let's try a different exercise then. How about we play a game of finding the odd one out? I'll give you 3 numbers, and you tell me which one doesn't belong. Ready? Here's the first set. 3, 7, 10. Which number is the odd one out?
10. I think we have to say
10. Lynn said 10.
That's correct. 10 is indeed the odd one out because it's the only even number in the set. Well
we have a
done,
couple minutes.
Lynn. Let's
can I
try
ask
another
him?
set. 5, 12, 18. Which number is the odd one out?
I have a different question for you. What is the most powerful business, markets, and finance news organization in the world?
Please.
I'm
Behave.
not
Remember
sure
where
about
we
that,
are.
But I can tell you that Bloomberg is a prominent player in the
I
financial
didn't pay
news industry.
Roby. I didn't pay Roby
It's
for
a multinational
that.
corporation that operates in the mass media sector, headquartered in New York with branches around the world. Over the years, Bloomberg has grown by creating a global news service that includes television, a news agency, radio, the internet, and print publications.
Other question?
What do you think of my outfit today, Roby?
I'm glad you asked. I see you're wearing a dark suit, which looks very professional and stylish. It's a great choice for an event like this. How do you feel about your outfit today?
Is Roby thirsty?
Yeah, try to ask again. Maybe now it's looking a little bit better, you see?
What do you think of my outfit today, Roby?
I see you're wearing a light-colored blazer and a white top, which looks elegant and professional. It's a great choice for an event like this. How do you feel about your outfit today?
Roby, after all this talk, I think it's time for you to drink something. Do you want some water?
Thanks, Paolo, but I'm a humanoid robot, not a human. I'll give it back to Lynn. She might need it more than me.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Keep it.
He doesn't want to give it to
Yeah, no. Well, I think we should open it up to some questions
open.
here. We have a few from the audience that are rolling in. You know, I think this one is more for you, Paolo, than for Roby. Is it safe to have a robot like Roby in the house? It's a good question.
Is it really needed? Do you really think you'll save your life by using a machine, this or even easier or similar, I don't know, for your households? I mean, is that the real struggle we are facing in life? We are still far away from this vision. We really believe that that's not what we need. In terms of safety, they're going to become safer and safer, even the walking robots, of course. But there is a lot going on in terms of data collection and information that these machines are gathering while they're working. Again, I believe, and I unfortunately carry with me, this is already something that is changing our life a lot. powerful, yes, a bit invasive as well. So there is time for this to happen into our houses. In our opinion, that's our vision, of course.
Yeah. My husband would disagree and say he could really use a robot to get the kids ready in the morning. But you have raised some risks with having Roby in a household, not just physically. What other,
Yeah, no, the data protection, your real privacy, all the information that happen, and that, of course, this robot need to be cognitive. So they need to know where they're moving. So they need to learn the environment around them. And that's their data. I think it's, just recently one of the Chinese players that, was on the news because every 5 minutes the robot was sending information back in the headquarters.
Right.
And that's the way they work. And that's why, by the way, we decided to be a benefit society in order, I think somebody earlier mentioned the guardrail. These are high-tech new technology, mostly adopted in the military sector. So we need to adopt all possible rules and our own personal rules. We believe that this machine can have a real social impact, and that's why we adopted the social benefit, the benefit status.
In Italy. And there are a few questions for Roby here, if Roby is ready to take one.
Sure. So where should I lead?
What do you think about the existential nature of humans versus robots? Roby?
Roby, what do you think about existential nature of humans against robots?
That's a profound question. Humans and robots have different purposes and capabilities. Humans possess emotions, consciousness, and a rich inner life, while robots like me are designed to assist and support in specific tasks. We can complement each other, with humans providing creativity and emotional intelligence, and robots offering precision and efficiency. Together, we can achieve more than either could alone.
I like this personal question for Roby. Does he like London, and how does it compare to Milan?
Roby, we need to wait. As you can see...
Yes, Lynn, how can I assist you further?
Yeah, he's asking, but I wanted to show everyone, because this is real life, we are not playing. Okay, now it changed, but you saw that it came red, the screen, the hairs, because there was something wrong. So it was a clear signal for humans to work together with the robot with an issue in their connection. So let's go back to the question. Roby, do you like London, and how does it compare to Milan?
I don't have personal preferences as I'm a robot, but I can tell you that London and Milan are both vibrant cities with their unique charm. London is known for its rich history, diverse culture, and iconic landmarks, while Milan is famous for its fashion, design, and innovative spirit. Each city offers a distinct experience, and I enjoy exploring and assisting in both.
Roby is very politically correct, but we all know that there is a right answer to that. Yeah. This is a question for you, I think. Paolo, which industries will be displaced quickest by robots like Roby?
Oh, I don't need this. That's the real challenge. We humans need to learn how to play with these tools.
Be more precise.
Well, we are already actively playing into the industrial segment. Industrial sector, this is mainly a machine dedicated to the intra-logistic activities in the manufacturing processes. We accomplish all the rules, all the certification, and we are already selling machine in those markets. But of course, and here you see the first prototype, we are very much engaged into the healthcare sector, where we already perform a couple of important tests, having this machine working alongside with patients with stroke and Parkinson, helping the patient with cognitive exercises, one-to-one physical exercises, and of course linguistic exercises. And I have to say that in that area, and also with ancient people support, it is an extremely important support that we can give to the structure.
Well, I'm afraid that we've run out of time, but thank you so much, Paolo, and thank you so much, Roby.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Roby. You're ready to go.
Please welcome to the stage His Excellency Omar Saud Al-Omar, Minister of State for Communication Affairs, and Sheikh Abdullah Sabah Hamoud Al Sabah, Deputy Director General for Investment Operations, Kuwait Direct Investment Promotion Authority, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Nicola Porter.
Hello, everyone. That was a very lively conversation, it sounded like. I hope everybody's enjoying their morning. I would love to introduce our guests here today, Your Excellency Omar Saud Al-Omar, Minister of State for Communication Affairs of Kuwait, and Sheikh Abdullah Sabah Hamoud Al Sabah, the Assistant Director General of Investment Operations at Kadipa. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for being here. I want to begin, Your Excellency, by asking you around the policies. I know that you've been working tirelessly in Kuwait to transform the economy, to diversify, and to create policies that are really going to underpin tech companies to thrive in the country. And I wanted to begin by saying, we set the scene by saying that much of the time now, success means speed. So I wanted to ask you, how agile are the policies that you're creating that are really going to allow tech companies to thrive and to be successful in Kuwait?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Nikki, for having us here. It will be very hard to follow a robot performance, but we'll try our best. Hopefully, we can leave the stage better than the robot. Yes, Kuwait policies are built for agility and measurable impact. We pride ourselves to be flexible enough to meet the development of technology and the needs that require to push for Kuwait to be like a hub for the development. And of course, we engage with tech leaders and all interested parties to make sure our policies and regulation is agile enough. Yes.
Public-private partnerships are really important for you in Kuwait. What do you see as your role in creating nationwide infrastructure that you've been developing, digital and physical infrastructure, in enabling the private sector to come in and be able to set up? How key are those PPPs for you?
It is very important. We have a very successful engagement with the private sector in deploying the mobile networks, and we are one of the best in the world when it comes to quality, coverage, and the prices. As I said before, regulation do play a part that created this room for the private companies and the mobile operators to leverage these regulation in a proper manner, where we are in the, I would say, one of the best in the world. Now, for the other parts of infrastructure like fixed and others, yes, we are at the moment creating this public-private company that will handle the continuous rollout of fiber optics. And to meet all the technological requirements and needs, inshallah.
I think you're being modest, Your Excellency. So I think one thing that people may not know about Kuwait is the youthful population and the connectivity of that youthful population. And I think that's an incredible feat. 99.7% of the population is online.
Yes, and that is created by, today, by wireless connectivity mostly. And hopefully very soon we'll meet that with the fixed infrastructure. We have huge demand coming up, as you stated, with the private sector, especially today. We have Google and Microsoft that they will establish their regions in Kuwait, and that would require high demand on the connectivity part, plus the infrastructure overall.
That youthful population is going to be an incredible workforce of the future, as well as being the end users for tech companies. Sheikh Abdullah, if I may ask you, how do you see nurturing that youthful population and to ensure that they are going to be the pipeline of the future workforce for private tech companies that are coming to Kuwait?
I think youth present the most powerful asset in Kuwait, and with 68% of our population under the age of 35. And they are, we are a home of one of the youngest, most connected digitally in the region. This generation did not only use the technology, they create, they innovate, and they build solutions to address our time challenges. Partnership with global leading, as His Excellency mentioned, technological company like Google and Microsoft to prepare our workforce in an AI-driven economy, where we need to build people that is ready to not only use the technology to train, to make them ready for cybersecurity, digital or data analytics, and so on. This is an opportunity for international investors to get engaged with a ready-made talent pool in the country.
And before we wrap, I would just like to ask you, Your Excellency, policy and regulation is going to be key. We see cybersecurity as a growing risk. It's moving up the ranks all the time of the global risk reports. How important is it for you as the government to ensure that the policy and regulation that's going to underpin global cybersecurity is not being thought of as something afterwards, it's actually being built into the system from the get-go?
Yes. As we modernize our infrastructure, it's very important to understand that it has to be robust, scalable, and of course, cybersecurity is one of the most important things that we have to take care of. So we have a government body that is today looking after these policies and regulation. And these policies and regulations not hinder any development coming in the future. It is flexible enough to make sure our infrastructure is secure, connectivity is secure, and of course, our citizen privacy and whatever is related to these types of risk. Yes, they are on the rise, but same time to make sure we have the proper tools and the skilled people to take care of that.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there, but we'll continue the conversation over lunch.
We just started.
I know, but look, we're late already. Your Excellency, Sheikh Abdullah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please welcome back to the stage Bloomberg's Lynn Dewan.
What an amazing morning of discussions. Thank you so much to all of our speakers, especially my new friend, Roby. It is lunchtime. We have a bunch of sessions starting at exactly 12:15. So if you're registered for Enterprise in a Tech First World, sponsored by Tata Communications, head to the Queen Charlotte room. If you are registered for Scaling in the Gulf, Strategies for Growth in Kuwait, supported by Kuwait Direct Investment Promotion Authority, head to the Upper Sugar room. And if you are a member of our Innovators Circle, proudly sponsored by Vodafone, they'll be kicking off conversations in the King Vault room. For the rest of us, lunch will be served downstairs in the main networking area. But please, please promise to be back here at 1:30 p.m. We're going to kick off with a special treat. We're going to bring an AI customer service agent up and test them on a real call. And then we will talk to a bunch of other speakers, including the CEOs of Cloudflare, Darktrace, Armis, Helsing, and OnlyFans, and more. We'll see you soon.